2024, 3 p.m. We'll have the invocation by Councilmember Jeffrey Darby and the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Don Williams.
Father God, we thank you for this today. We thank you, Lord God, for rest on last night. We thank you, Father, for the things that you've already done and what you're going to do. We thank you for this country. We thank you, Father, for the fair election that's taking place today. We pray for those who are candidate for office. We pray that you would anoint them to do the work of the people. We pray, Father, for every person, Lord, who choose to serve. We thank you, Lord, for those who are in our midst today in this room who are servants. Thank you, Lord, for that service. We ask that you give us direction to do the things that bring glory to your name. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please face the flag, repeat the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Montgomery?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Hammonds?
Here.
Mr. Darby?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Mr. Freed?
Here.
Mr. Maggio?
Here.
All present. Council, in accordance with Louisiana open meetings laws and the adopted Bossier City Council meeting rules resolution, the City Council asks for order and decorum at our meetings. Please silence your cell phones. Anyone wishing to address the council on any agenda items may approach and state their names and address for the record and shall be permitted 3 minutes to make their comments on the particular item that's up for discussion, with up to 4 speakers per side. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or who shall become boisterous while addressing the council, shall be forthwith by the President Pro Tem barred from further audience before the council, unless permission to continue be granted by a majority vote of the council. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a body and not to any member thereof. No question shall be asked a council person or the mayor except through the meeting chair. All other audience members are asked to observe the meeting quietly. City Council has appointed the city marshals as the sergeant-at-arms, and they have been instructed to maintain decorum and ask anyone in violation to step out of the meeting.
All right, ceremonial matters and recognition of guests.
Proclamation for Fleet Reserve Association. Mayor Chandler. Shows it's on.
I have a proclamation to read for the Fleet Reserve Association. Whereas the Fleet Reserve Association was originally chartered in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on 11 November 1924, based on 3 cardinal principles: loyalty, protection, and service. The loyalty of one owes God and country, loyalty to sea service, and the loyalty of the one owes to shipmates. The protection of one's country by advocating the adequate defense to ensure peace, the protection of shipmates by sponsoring measurements beneficiary to all, service to rendering all services to all shipmates and their dependents in good fortune and distress in every possible way. And whereas Fleet Reserve Association has represented enlisted personnel before U.S. congressional committees on every piece of major legislation affecting sea service military personnel since the inception in 1924. For the first 35 years of that period, Fleet Reserve Association was the only enlisted association appearing before the U.S. Congress. And whereas the members of the Fleet Reserve Association are dedicated to upholding the idea of freedom and democracy while working to make a difference in the lives of fellow Americans. And whereas members of the Fleet Reserve Association branch sponsor programs that promote strong families, community involvement, and democracy. Now, therefore, I, Thomas H. Chandler, Mayor of the great city of Bossier City, do hereby proclaim November 11th, 2024 as Fleet Reserve Association Day. President.
Thank you, sir, we appreciate it.
Thank y'all for all y'all do. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. President. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate you. Thank you, guys.
All right, and I think we have a few Bossier Youth Leadership students in the audience today. Anyone Bossier Youth Leadership? Y'all want to come up to the podium and introduce yourself?
Right there.
Introduce yourself and let us know what school you represent.
Hello, I'm Audrey Lyles, and I go to Benton High School.
I'm Ella Hembry, and I go to Benton High School.
I'm Grayson Lewis, and I go to Airline High School.
I'm Evelyn Beckham, and I go to Benton High School.
I'm Melrose Beverly, and I go to Parkway High School.
I'm Kennedy Cole, and I go to Benton High School.
I'm Amelia Stringer, and I go to Benton High School.
I'm Ava Monero, and I go to Airline High School.
I'm Catherine Pittman, and I go to Airline High School.
Welcome to Bossier City Council. We are glad you're here. Hope you learn a lot, so thank you.
All right.
And Councilman, I hope I did us all justice. Last week, I had the opportunity to speak in the chambers with the whole BYL group and kind of how the city council works and what districts we represent. So I hope I did us all justice and represented us well. All right, approve the agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda. Sorry.
So moved. Second.
We got a motion by Mr. Montgomery and a second by Mr. Darby. Is there any public comment on today's agenda?
I guess Dave Crockett, 653 Domain Drive, Bossier City, Louisiana. Is there going, I guess I thought we would have a motion if you're going to combine this. Are we going to keep all the items separate? I guess that's a question that I have for you. Are you going to motion to change the agenda to combine the items like you normally do during the budget?
We would do that when we get to their agenda item.
Okay. Well, that's my comment. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment on today's agenda? Any comment from the council?
Yeah, Mr. President, I would like a motion that we remove all budget items for 2 weeks.
Okay. Mr. Montgomery would need to remove his motion to approve the agenda.
I'm not going to.
All right. So, any other comments from the council? All right. Cast your vote.
Motion carries.
All right, we need a motion to approve the minutes of the October 22nd, 2024 regular council meeting and dispense with the reading.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Montgomery and a second by Mr. Williams. Is there any public comment?
David Crockett, 653 Domain Drive, Bossier City, Louisiana. I reviewed the minutes, and I saw that it didn't reflect the president's request by the city engineer to bring in the cost of the Walter O. Bigby carriageway. I'd like for it to be reflected and also there were several comments about where are these numbers coming from. And the quote out of the Jeff Sadow article came out of X little I, which is Roman numeral 12, I guess, of the 2023 CAFR, where it lists the Walter O. Bigby carriageway funds to do that project at $84,789,232, which is what Jeff Sadow referenced. It lists the Walter O. Bigby Carriageway Fund as a source, the LCDA 2018 LCDA Fund, the 2015 LCDA bonds, Riverboat Capital Projects Fund, Land Acquisition Fund, Riverboat Gaming Trust Fund, Hotel Motel Tax Fund, and the 2017 sales tax bond. I know I've mentioned this several times, how expensive that project is, which also led to my comments about doing the $2.8 million for the extension of the Citizens Bank Drive Road. And so I think that that information is necessary because, like I said, and it wasn't referenced in the minutes, that I got derogatory comments from one of your councilmen, Mr. President, that I thought was out of hand, that when we as citizens are trying to hold the city accountable for the excess spending for projects that I think get out of hand, a lot of the other people who come to these meetings do. I wish it was taken more seriously, and I hope that we find out in this meeting whether the $84,780,000 or $789,000 is an exact number, or if it's too little, because I know there have been change orders. So I'd like for that to be reflected in the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Crockett, me and Mr. Rauschenbach have been in contact. This project goes over many years, so takes a little bit of research to get all the numbers, but I'm working with the engineering department on that. All right, public hearings and actions on,
No, sir.
oh, I'm sorry, bids.
No, sir.
Got to vote?
Oh, I'm sorry. And is there any comment from the council on the minutes? All right, cast your vote.
Motion carries.
There we go. Now opening of bids.
Witness opening of sealed bids. Oh, sorry. Witness opening of sealed bids for P24-09 Brownlee Road rehabilitation.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor Chandler. We are opening the bids today for the Brownlee Road rehabilitation. There were 2 addenda on this project, and the engineer's estimate was $1,317,085. And this was approved in last year's budget for 2024. The first bid is from Benton and Brown. They acknowledged both addenda and they have their bid bond. Their bid is for $1,155,506.15. That's 1155506.15. The second bid is from Ernest Contracting, LLC. They did acknowledge both addenda and their bid bond is included. Their bid is for $1,114,674.75. That's 1,114,674.75. And I ask that you approve the reading of these bids.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Montgomery and a second by Mr. Hammonds. Is there any public comment? Comment from the council?
Yeah, Mr. President, Mr. Rauschenbach, y'all are saying rehabilitation. Are we taking this road all the way down to subsurface?
We will be doing that in areas for patching. And the intersection at Old Brownlee Road and Brownlee Road, we're changing that from asphalt to concrete because there's
Okay.
a lot of turning movement there. But much of it's going to be a mill and overlay,
Okay.
restriped.
And what kind of time frame would we be looking at on this? I know that's a very busy,
It is.
very busy road.
We have discussed internally, it's probably going to start, it'll probably start right around January, based on their mobilization, weather, things like that. I'll be able to give you more detail when I do our engineering report. Once we sit down with a contractor and develop get their information on the work plan, we'll get started on that. The big part of that project was traffic control, by the way, very big. We're using temporary signaling there and have a pretty robust traffic control plan.
Won't affect our fire station right there on Brownlee Road, or?
Sir.
Okay. Just one other question. I mean, this is I mean, this isn't a small job, and I mean, we got 2 bids. I mean, is it just the guys that do this work, are they so busy right now? I know a lot of them are, you know, subcontractors on the bridge project, and I mean, are they just,
We got, my opinion, we got 2 very good local contractors.
oh yeah, they're the best in the game. So just figured a job like this, we would have a lot more people bidding on it.
You would, it's complicated. You know, you would think maybe Airline Drive would be more complicated, the one we recently did, but I would say this one's more complicated because, you know, it's 1 lane each way, the traffic
Yeah.
control is complicated, the concrete portion, things like that. So I don't know that would have scared folks off, but you know, it's not just a standard mill and overlay, you know, so the companies doing this know how to do that kind of work, and, they were very inquisitive. We had a lot of questions and worked with a lot of, you know, a couple of RFIs or addendum, excuse me, that we dealt with through the project, so.
Okay.
We feel like we've got a good number. I'm happy with where
Yeah,
this is.
no, I'm happy with the numbers. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other comments? If not, council, please cast your vote.
Motion carries.
All right, and hold on, Brooke, before you leave, is today your birthday? No? Little birdie told me today's your birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
You want us to sing happy birthday to you?
We can sing to you.
You do? Yeah. Go ahead, take off.
Chief Brad Zagon would be happy to do so after the meeting's over. All right, public hearings and action on unfinished business.
Adopt an ordinance proposing amendments to the city charter of the city of Bossier City as recommended by the Charter Commission. Final reading.
So move.
Second.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. Darby and a second by Mr. Maggio. Is there any public comment? Any comment from the council? Oh, sorry.
West Marriott, 211 Shadow Ridge Drive, Bossier City, Louisiana. I oppose sending these amendments from the Charter Commission anywhere, let alone to the State Bond Commission or to the voters before the voters get a chance to hear the petition on the ballot. The State Bond Commission has already rejected this exact attempt by this body to send the commission's amendments to the voters. The reasoning from the president of that board, Dr. Fleming, was very simple. He said the petition came first. He said the people of Bossier City, over 3,000 of them, signed a petition and said, we'd like to make this change. The change doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the change was. They said, we'd like to make this change. They followed the rules to a T. They brought the change to the council, and the council said, we don't want to hear from you. We're not going to send it forward. So the petitioners sued. The 26th Judicial Court agreed with the petitioners and issued an order mandating this council to act and said, you must send this. The council then rejected the order and appealed it, which is your right to do so, and then fast-tracked a proposal, another change, similar in nature but different, that was not born of the people, but it was born of appointed officials appointed by this body. And Dr. Fleming was correct. He said that shocks the conscience. That's not moral. It may be legal, but it is not moral for the people to request a change and for the people to be ignored and for politicians and appointed officials to put their change ahead of the people. And for that reason, you must reject sending this to the voters. I hope that when this goes before the State Bond Commission, that Dr. Fleming does the exact same thing. But again, you have the opportunity to follow what the State Bond Commission has said and said, I don't want to see this until the petition is sent to the voters. You can follow the black and white, or you can do what is morally correct. In the Bible, Jesus stated the law was not made for, correction, man was not made for the law. Man was not made for these set of laws. The law was made to guide man, to help man. And what you are doing is not helping the people of Bossier City. The people of Bossier City requested a change, and they have the right for that to be heard. They have a right by our Constitution and by our own city charter to have that change voted on. oppose this measure, do not pass it forward. Thank you.
David Crockett, 653 Domain Drive, Bossier City, Louisiana. Thank you for your comments, Wes. I didn't even anticipate making any comments, but I was really surprised by the number of people that are here in Bossier City. And I just wanted to relate just a few issues. I went to almost every one of the meetings of the Charter Commission. I wrote papers that went before the Charter Commission that were never discussed in the Charter Commission. I proposed ways to make it more difficult to borrow money in the Bossier City Council to make a higher number of votes required. And that was really for the people that happened to show up in this meeting, so I'm more motivated to speak about the issue. Because it's extraordinary spending in Bossier City that drove Bossier City's debt at one time almost to $500 million a year, that results in the $32 million in principal and interest that Bossier City Council pays on its debt every year. That's in direct conflict with the pay and salaries of the people that stand in this room before you. I am so glad that you all came. This is the best statement that could be made before Bossier City. So why does that relate to the Charter Commission? We are trying to make Bossier City different, so Bossier City does not, in my mind, run amok. Whether I be an accountant or my business degree and my experience, I can read a financial report. I can see where misspending occurs. That's what we're trying to address through the Charter Commission, but those ideas were disregarded because people were just trying to rush to get something in front of the city to vote because they're trying to convolute the issue about the term limits issue. They'll get a watered-down term limits and then try to campaign against what we try to do. So that's why I'm arguing about it. Thank you, people, for showing. That was unexpected, but it does show that you do care about the budget in Bossier City. You care about the way your city's run, and we love you for what you do. Thank you.
Lee A. Jeter Sr., 400 Columbia Circle, Bossier City, Louisiana. I know this issue has been before the Bond Commission once before. However, I happen to disagree with Dr. Fleming intervening in that issue going before the voters on the December ballot. I think when we were commissioned to review the charter, and I've said this numerous times, we were commissioned to review the city charter, not a singular issue. The issue that we have put before the voters is some changes, some significant changes to the charter for the city of Bossier City. Not a singular issue. We may forever disagree on the substance of term limits and the retroactivity of term limits, but what we have put in the city charter is term limits that are not retroactivity, term limits that allows someone to serve 3 full terms to set out and to be able to run again. It is not an indefinite suspension. We believe that we have put a document before the people of Bossier City that if the people of Bossier City approve this document, it is a step in the right direction to improve our city government. For that reason, and because of that single issue that is tied up in court, we should not hold the charter and the advancement and the changes that we're proposing to the city charter for Bossier City to be further delayed. There are some significant changes in the charter that is going to help make our city government a better government. And because of that, I request and ask kindly that you move this issue forward. That other issue is in the courts. The courts will decide that issue. One has no bearing on the other, in my opinion, and we can agree to disagree on some of that, and some members of the audience can agree to disagree with me on that. But there are more important issues in our city charter than one singular issue of retroactive term limits. So I respectfully request this council move that issue forward to the voters, and the voters will have the final say whether they accept the charter as been amended or they not, and then we will move from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeter. Is there any other public comment? Any comment from the council?
Yeah, I'd like to make one. Well stated, Mr. Jeter. Thank you, sir, for your comments, and thank you for your service on the Charter Commission.
Any other comment?
Yeah, I do, Mr. President, or Acting President, however we address you today. What is going to be different this time when we send this to the Bond Commission? I remember watching this live when this was going on, and Dr. Fleming said, do not bring this back to the Bond Commission until it has been resolved in the court. Am I wrong on that? He wanted to see how this was played out in court, and I know this isn't going to be heard until November the 19th. So I don't really see what the point of us even looking at this right now until this has been resolved in the Court of Appeal.
Well, Councilman Hammonds, to answer your question, I don't think that it was I didn't take it as a mandate from Dr. Fleming that all litigation had to be resolved. At that time, there was the council version, and it was, that day a suit had been filed here in the 26 JDC. It was later voluntarily dismissed. The Charter Commission amendments are not in a court anywhere. The petition version is. The main objection that Dr. Fleming seemed to seize on was the fact that in the ordinance that created the Charter Commission, there was a requirement for a 60-day notice provision. Now, it could be argued that it was noticed. I don't want to get into that it's a moot point anyway. But this proposed charter and the amendments have been published now 3 times in the official journal, October 16th, October 22nd, October 29th. So any 60-day issue that might have been in place for the December 7th election is no longer there. So that's what is different. And the problem, Councilman Hammonds, is that there's only an 18-month window in which the Charter Commission can act, and that has to be all the way through an election. And so there's the March 29th election, and then there's a May 3rd election. So there's nothing keeping us from putting this before the Bond Commission. If they want to pass it again, then I guess that will be their prerogative. But I think there's not anything stopping us from moving it forward. And what we don't want to do is run out of time. I've said it over and over. I don't think anything that is done in the Charter Commission version impedes any way the People's Petition version, but we've hashed that over and over. But to answer your question, what's different is there's not a 60-day issue like they claim there was with December 7th. I disagree.
Nothing would keep us from having a special election if need be on this.
Well, yeah, state law would. You can only have elections on election days now, which would be March 29th or May the 3rd.
Okay.
They did away, they used to have a lot of dates available. Now you can only have a special election. You could have a special election on a date that you don't already have one on it. We do March 29th, but you have to go with the dates that the Secretary of State and the state provides. So we're going to run out of time if we don't get it done. And the Bond Commission moved up their deadline to November the 8th for their agenda for their December meeting. So that's why it's here before you today.
But in turn, we are still going against the will of the people of Bossier City.
Well,
I mean, in all retrospect, I mean, our charter gives them the right to do what they did, and in turn, we're trying to push something through and go against the will of the people.
Well, I'm just trying to answer your question, but the Charter Commissions are impaneled around the state routinely. It's a process that is done where elected representatives, the 7 council members and the mayor, appointed people who live in Bossier City, and so you are the people's representatives. Those people were your representatives, so
I
that's the
just took it
concept.
as his words that he didn't want to see this again until all litigation was done.
Well,
I mean, we might need to go sit down and watch the video again, but I mean, I think that was the exact words out of his mouth.
When Councilman Hammonds, when will the Second Circuit rule and on this?
November 19th, and then they have a month after that, December the 19th.
Well,
They have 1 month in order to return their verdict.
they have oral argument.
Huh?
They have oral argument
On
in
the
November.
19th, and then after that, they have 1 month. I'm not an attorney, though.
I'm not aware of that rule. They have the time that they have. It could be a
That was
week,
just what
it
our
could be
attorney
6
told
months.
us.
Yeah, so I don't know when they will rule, but it's possible that they rule prior to the bond commission meeting. If they do, we want to be in a posture to be ready to move forward.
Duke Lowry, Benton, Louisiana. I misread the agenda. I thought you were going to have a resolution that you were going to send to the bond commission, but this is an ordinance. So you're going to send an ordinance to the bond commission?
Both are on the agenda.
Both are on the agenda. This was the first reading, this is the second reading on the ordinance. It was read for the first time last week, or 2 weeks ago, and then there's a resolution under new business.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir. All right, is there any other public comment or comment from the council? All right, council, please cast your vote.
Motion carries. Public hearing for consideration for final adoption of the City of Bossier City 2025 proposed budgets.
We'll open the public hearing. Is there any comments from the audience on the 2025 proposed budget?
David Crockett, 653 Domain Drive, Bossier City, Louisiana. I'm tailoring a lot of my comments because rarely do we get so many people in one room. That's the closest thing to a real town hall where people who actually work and run the city are here. Basically, what I've been arguing for about 2.5 years is, and I'm going to tailor my comments also to what we just discussed. We have been trying to get both the mayor and the city council to try to hold a line on spending and a lot of other issues in Bossier City. One of the arguments that I've made over and over again, and I was challenged in this in the last meeting, is that Bossier City's debt, which is causing the challenge that you have in making the pay raises. These gentlemen in this room should have had pay raises 2 or 3 years ago. It shouldn't have had to wait this long, but nobody could really figure out how you're gonna do your spending, how you're gonna use your general funds to pay your debt service. Basically, those $33 million that Bossier City pays in principal and interest on the debt does compete with any money that you need to move around to do your projects that are costing Bossier City. For the next 13 years, it's going to be a challenge if we continue to have inflation in Bossier City. That's why I tried to make recommendations in the Charter Commission to do other things. What the Charter Commission is not fixing anything. Charter Commission is trying to make it where you can basically contract out the leadership for the whole dadgum city that we all love. They're making it so that you can contract out your division chiefs in every division. I remember when Mayor Chandler was trying to, when the public was trying to argue not to contract out Manchac for 5 years, because we thought that you ought to compete the contract so you could save money, so you could give these people pay raises when you need to. If you try to save money in Bossier City instead of spending it all the time, so you've got so much debt service all the time, or at least you fix the roads so the people in Bossier City are happy about what you're doing, rather than extending a road at the end of the Walter O. Bigby carriageway for $2.8 million for less than 300 feet of road. If you would start doing those kind of things, then Bossier City would appreciate what you're doing. But these people, some of them, had to do a survey to say that we're having a hard time feeding our families. And somebody pressured them probably to take that sign down, but that was necessary. Bossier City needs to be careful. We tried to make those changes. I think and I will tell you, it's an opportunity. I'll take this few seconds. You were wrong about what you said. Go listen, all of you people, go listen to what the bond commission said. They said resolve it in court. They saw that the Charter Commission was an effort to undermine what we were trying to do for you people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
West Marriott, 211 Shadow Ridge, Bossier City, Louisiana. I do want to comment on the budget as a whole, and I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to discuss some of the specifics. Colonel Crockett, who has significant governmental experience, not only with extensive military experience, but masters in public administration and masters of political science. His words shouldn't be discounted as they have been previously, but he brought up a great point. The $83 million that were spent on the Walter O. Bigby, what a worthy cause. We're all saving 2.5 minutes as we head northbound into Bossier, thanks to this monumental task. I'm looking at the compensation study done by SSA Consultants, and I am not a statistician or a demographer or an expert in this, but there's a conclusion at the back. And it says, in order to bring the incumbents into the market range, which to me seems like educated speak for, to pay people fairly would cost $1.3 million. So we spent $80 million on a road that has limited usefulness now and maybe marginal usefulness in the future. We have a draining fund balance, which is $40 million and is collapsing quickly. Sales tax revenue is dropping post-COVID. We have the hardest working police and fire in the region with conditions that are abysmal. I mean, instead of answering calls for 911, you've got police officers that are working in the jail because the jail is short-staffed. You've got firefighters that are working double shifts frequently. Then instead of Christmas time, where they should be spending a little more time with their family, they're getting excited about the opportunity to work more and more overtime so they could buy their kids some presents because they are grossly underpaid compared to some of our regional partners. And we just wonder why after 3 years, 1 in 5 officers are tucking tail and going to Texas to go make triple what they can make here. But we have a great new road north of Texas that we can save 2.5 minutes. So I'm curious how this body can justify some of these incredible projects when we need to take care of the people who take care of the families in Bossier City. And I hope that in this public hearing on the budget, we get to discuss that a little bit more. And I hope that we take care of our first responders. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment on the proposed budget? Any comments from the council on the proposed budget? All right, we will close the public hearing.
Adopt an ordinance to adopt the general fund budget for 2025.
I'd like to make the motion that we combine items 3 through 27.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Montgomery and a second by Mr. Darby to combine 3 through 27, which are all the budget items. Is there any public comment?
David Crockett, 653 Dumaine Drive, Bossier City, Louisiana. I object to this every time you guys do this because there are so many issues that we ought to be looking at on the board, actually. So this should be the longest meeting in Bossier City every year. I'll give you one example. I have a question every time and I raise it, no one ever answers it, which is, for instance, you have a sales tax where you raise anywhere from $3 to $4 million for road repair, yet every year the city takes $1 million out of that to go to the general fund. You only give $200,000 per district to do road and street repair in each one of the districts, and so I can't ever figure out why, if the people, when they were sold on having an additional sales tax in Bossier City, that you don't spend the money on road repair. You know, you use it for ditch repair or stormwater drainage and other things, but when you sell a tax, you ought to be spending it on the road repair in the neighborhoods. That's where one of our petitioners fell because she tripped over a sidewalk that was uneven. That's just one issue. But, you know, when you combine everything every year, then people don't get a chance to take the time and review it. One year I spent a day almost reviewing the budget but then you combine it, you only get to make one comment. So I just disagree with the whole concept of doing this. I would like for somebody to explain why each district only gets $200,000 to fix your sidewalks and your roads in your district. I'd love for somebody to explain that.
Is there any other public comment on the combination?
West Marriott, 211 Shadow Ridge, Bossier City, Louisiana. I oppose combining these things, just like Colonel Crockett has just said. We make this objection every year when you do this. I think it violates the spirit of the Louisiana Constitution that prohibits omnibus bills. You're not, maybe not the letter of the law, but even the charter in Chapter 3 and Section 14, it says ordinances are limited to a single topic, and I think you should vote on each one of those individual topics instead of combining them, because there may be someone here who came specifically to speak about one or two, or God forbid, 5 of the budgets. By combining them into one, they're unable to do so. So I think that this is not a transparent way to conduct business. I think that it violates the spirit of the Constitution and the spirit of the charter. And I think to do so is going to limit the transparency of the Bossier City government. And with, dozens of police and fire and public servants here, I think it sets a bad example going into the budget for transparency. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment on combining these items? Is there any comment from the council? All right, council, please cast your vote.
Motion carries. Motion to adopt the 2025 operating and capital budgets.
Phyllis, do we need to make a motion and then offer an amendment?
You can offer the amendment now.
All right. I'd like to offer an amendment to the general fund budget and all budgets that have this salary account in them. I'd like to, and help me, Phyllis, if I need to reword what I'm saying or clarify, I would like to take out the administration's proposal for raises. I would like to replace that with a $500 per month raise for all employees in the city of Bossier.
I'll second that.
And, pardon me, someone would like to speak, they're more than welcome to come up.
Let me get to that point.
All right, so in clarification, the police department, I believe, Angela, it was 1.76 million. You might want to come to the mic just in case people have questions.
Angela, would it be easier to do just all the budgets at one, just to do all of them? Just, because we'll have to reintroduce them. Would it be easier just to do it or pick through in a group? So that continue all the budgets, reintroduce all the budgets, not just the ones that have the salary line in them.
Okay, then whatever, that's what I'm saying. We want to make sure that we're doing this, in the proper strategic form. But I believe 1.76 million was what it was going to cost for the police department, $500 a month raise, correct?
$1,758,438.
Well, that number, and then the fire department will receive that same amount of money, and the fire department will apply that according to state civil service law, according to their salary structure.
So is that across the board, a $500 a month raise? Is that
What's that?
$500 a month raise?
Well, with the
across
fire
board?
department, though, they're going to have to decide. I mean, I don't think anybody up here is qualified to take on that task right now. So to maintain parity between the police and the fire, which we've always tried to do, they will both receive the same allocation of funding at whatever that number was, 1.768, is that right?
58. 1.758.
1.758. I mean, we ought to just round it off to 1.76. I mean, in case there's some minor discrepancies.
Chief, is that fine with you? Because I know y'all, like I said, the driver, the back-end man, they all have different levels. You can figure all that out instead of us doing it.
Yes, sir, that's great. I wrote the number down and we'll start plugging it in. You know, you have the laws of 10%, 25, 40, 50. And we did that in 2019 and we can plug it in and figure it out again.
That's how we've done it in the past.
Yeah.
So, anyway, if I could finish with unless someone has another question so far, but so are we clear on the amendment as far as the raise goes? The second thing I would like to do is, I believe you've got the sales tax for the Parkway going into the general fund.
Yes, sir, we
All
have
right,
2 billion.
I would like to take that out of the general fund, so that'll be a separate amendment.
So you want to adopt each amendment separately? Or do you want to do them all at one time?
Whatever the council's preference is.
Yeah, we can just, does everybody understand? We can do them all. at
No,
once.
I mean, when are we gonna ask questions?
Mr. Jacobs, what is your legal opinion on that?
I think you should take each proposed amendment up
Okay, so
separately.
there'll be 2 separate amendments.
And so it's for the police department, firefighters, and STEP as appropriate, and city employees as well?
What's that?
Is
What about
city employees
municipal
as well?
employees?
Yeah, it's everybody.
The municipal and non-civil service employees are also going to get 1.75.
No, it's $500 a month. All I'm doing is providing clarity between the police and the fire that the funding amount, they are equal to one another. That's all. Everybody else, that whatever that is, I believe we came up with somewhere a little over $5 million is what the raise is gonna cost across the board. And that includes water, sewer,
Yes, sir.
sanitation, our enterprise funds. So,
So how much is this total amendment going to, on the raise part, cost?
$5,516,001.
and again, part of that's water and sewer enterprise funds.
That's every fund.
Hold on, don't go nowhere.
I'm not through yet. So we've got roughly 5 million, right, Angela, is what it's gonna cost the general fund.
Yeah.
So along in the rationale, because I know that question's coming, after looking post-COVID for the past, and correct me if I'm wrong, Angela, because I'm going off memory, that we have increased the general fund balance, which means our revenues over expenditures have run $7 to $8 million a year. Is that correct?
For the past 3 years.
Three. And we're now at over 45, or expect to be over 45 million in the general fund.
Yes, sir.
So the very fact historically that we've proven that revenue has exceeded expenditures by that amount, it makes perfect sense that we can take the $5 million, which is not even near the 7 or 8 million, and use that to return back, because that is the money that all of the employees deserve. And then there'll be the question, if we don't have enough money going forward, or sales tax don't increase, do we not at $5 million have enough to essentially fund this raise for at least 5 to 6 years? Because the minimum, according to our own ordinance, is 15% of expenditures, the budget, which is going to be roughly $11 million, correct? I'm using 73 million as the budgeted expenditure.
Yes, 11,300,000.
Okay, so we're right there. So that if you subtract the 45 to 46 million, that leaves $35 million that we could potentially fund these raises without any additional sales tax revenue growth. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So I think it's fundamentally sound from a financial standpoint. It's fundamentally sound from an accounting standpoint. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but what I'm saying is that we don't want to take these steps that would financially impair the city. And I firmly believe, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I firmly believe, as it's been stated, that these raises are due, and we're here and prepared to give this money back to each of you that serve this city so well. So, thank you.
Is that, Mr. Montgomery, is that going to be all your amendments, the fire, police, municipal employees, the sales, removing the,
The sales tax we're going to do as a separate amendment.
I know, but I just wanted to know if there was any more part of the amendment. Is that?
No, I think, does that cover, I want to make sure that this, before we move forward.
I know we're
that-
voting on them, two separate items, but is
Yeah.
there any third or fourth items?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
That's it. But I want to make sure that we're covering and we're clear that what our goal is here. Is that,
I have a motion to amend all operating budgets to take out administration proposed for raises and replace with a $500 per month raise for all non-civil service employees, police officers, and firefighters, and step as appropriate.
right, but the funding mechanism or the funding amount will have parity. The exact same amount will go to the police department and the fire department, which is the 1.76 million. That's part.
He just,
I thought I
he
said
said,
round
he said
up.
rounded up to 1.6. What's a couple
1.76.
thousand more dollars, Jeff?
Yeah.
1.8.
I don't know.
Hold on, hold on just a second, Mr. Free. Are you done?
Yeah, I'm just
Okay.
saying, have we covered all of the employees of the city?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to open this up to the council first, because I'm sure there's a lot of questions. So, Mr. Free?
No, you were in the mid, you were trying to say something to their response. Do you remember?
You did look like you were going to say something, but you let Mr. Montgomery
If
finish.
it were sustainable,
Yeah, I can remind you.
Right, after the 4 or 5 years to have a recurring type of
right,
revenue to continue.
you'd agree with that.
But,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Okay. Do you have any more questions?
I do.
Go ahead. I'll let you cut in front of me.
I'm not putting you on the spot, Angel. You were very hesitant on that. I'm a very good facial reader. I mean, it just seems to me like after 5 years, we're going to drain the entire general fund budget.
Well,
I would like you to answer that question.
Yes, it's hard to know what's going to happen sales tax wise and revenue wise, but I don't know, over 5 million a year is a lot for the.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of money. And to go back to the parity, and all you guys in here, don't take this the wrong way. I mean, this is just real life right here. I understand what, giving it to the police and then giving the same thing to the fire, but that is not parity when it comes to the pay structure at the fire department and the police department. It's not parity when it comes to people that control. We have 3 things that are very vital to this city. 1 is our water department, and 2 is our police department, and 3 is our fire department. That's what keeps this city running. And we still have, even with $500 a month going to them, we still have people in the water department, according to our salary study, that are grossly underpaid. The people that control water going to over 100,000 people a day. Even with that, even with $6,000 a year. Right now, we're, 25 people short at the police department. We just graduated 13 from the fire department. This just, to me, I'm not going to sit up here and say I'm a CPA. I'm not, but I can balance a checkbook. I don't see how this is sustainable. I mean, the only way, if this is not sustainable, the one thing we're going to have to do in the years to come, we're going to lay people off, and we're going to have to raise taxes. That's the only way that we're going to make this up. And then we're going to look back, and we've got $40-something million gone out of the general budget, and we're going to be bankrupt, in my opinion.
Yes, either that or move more money from, that's going to capital to operating.
Okay. Are you done, Mr. Hammonds? Okay, I'd like to.
I've got a response.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Montgomery.
So, Angela, let me take back, because history is a part of this decision. For the last 3 years, revenues have exceeded expenditures by how much on average? $7 to $8 million a year. So it's not like we're making the assumption we're going to use fund balance. Quite frankly, if things continue as they have historically, and I'm not saying, well, none of us have a crystal ball, but right now all we have is history, and we know what 2024 is going to end up, and we're sitting on a large sum of money that deserves to go back to the employees of Bossier City. That's the purpose of those type of surpluses in the general fund. And to voice gloom and doom, then we would never give pay raises. I mean, when was the last time we gave a pay raise? 2000?
20.
I don't know. I'm just.
21 or 22.
Was it 2009? That's what I thought. So anyway, the point being, the money's there. We're still not taking all of the increases of 7 to 8 million. We're using a portion of that, which is $5 million out of the 7 to 8 increase. So as far as I'm concerned, as things have been in the past, and as we have to anticipate that they might not continue at 7 and 8, but even if they decrease by 20 or 30%, we're still going to have the 5 million growth to cover the raise. So anyway, that's my debate point on that.
Okay.
I've got one more question.
Go ahead.
Can I ask it?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. What would happen, we're talking about this reoccurring money and everything like that. There's talk right now in Texas of them legalizing gambling. What would happen if we lose 2 casinos in Bossier City?
We would have to replace, we would need money to pay debt service that's coming out
How
of
much
that.
money would we need to replace?
Debt service is $9,335,000.
Thank you.
Okay.
If somebody doesn't like this plan, I mean, we haven't seen nobody else come up with another plan, so, you know.
I saw a plan, so that's inaccurate, but anyways.
Well, no, if you have, I mean, I'm not saying you didn't, I haven't.
No, there's
heard.
a plan in the current budget, but
I have one more question. I mean, was there a budget meeting that I missed?
there was
On
before we
this?
came in, I believe.
I mean, I'm just wondering where this came from. I was only out of town for one meeting.
I agree with that. All right, I have a few questions too.
I think each council member has the right to offer amendments on the floor. Am I right, Mr. Smith?
You do, but I would point out that I came out of a meeting with a firefighter who knew more details about this than I did, so there's been some coordination going on here. But I'd like to ask a few
Let me
questions
ask you
myself.
something, Mr. Smith. When did this budget that's being presented today come about? Because Mr. Darby and Mr. Williams and myself met with that man and that lady 3 or 4 months ago, and the budget was done. And I've got 3 of us, which is legal. We sat, we talked about the budget, and it was presented. Am I right, gentlemen?
That's correct.
And this, what I see today, presented, we had no knowledge of. The very same thing you're accusing other people of.
There was a whole public workshop where this was discussed.
But we have businesses and jobs. So we're supposed to cancel our life because this is the day you're supposed to show up?
When you-
And how
when-
about?
when you decide to
and
run for
throughout
office,
the
yes,
years,
absolutely.
Throughout the 3.5 years that I've served, the mayor's always been welcome at my office. I've heard nothing since that last meeting. So I have the very same argument that you have, that I wasn't included. So I have every right, as I see, to come up with my proposed plan. I think I'm entitled to that. And you're entitled to bring what you would like. That's what this council's all about. I think that the $500 a month raise is what the people deserve. It helps those people that are in the middle, which is the majority of the employees. At $40,000 a year, that's a 15% increase. At 50, that's a 12. At 60, that's a 10% increase. I think the people deserve it, and I'm here prepared to debate till whatever time it is, to fight for these people's right to have the $500 a month.
And the meeting,
all right.
Mr. Montgomery's talking about is at the mayor's office. I think, if I'm not mistaken, David, it was $3.5 million short, wasn't it, the budget?
Well, I wasn't going to get into the details, but we certainly can talk about the fact that and am I right? Y'all looked at me and you said, how do we solve this problem? We're $3.5 million in the hole. And we came up, we balanced the budget as well as the water and sewer budget, and we thought everything was done. And then it changed. So.
Okay, so I'm going to start asking my questions now. Angela, or actually, let's start with Ms. Nottingham. The administration put forth a proposal. I don't believe y'all coordinated with any council members on how to come up with that. That was proposed by the administration and then presented at a public workshop in front of God, everybody, cameras.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Budget was
So there-
submitted to the council on
So nobody was
September
left out.
15th.
That, the mayor comes up with a budget and presents it to the council. That's what I thought. I couldn't remember, though. Okay, so your proposal was to get every employee in this city, fire, police, municipal, up to at least their market minimum, so that they're getting paid at least what they could get paid if they went outside elsewhere to find similar work, to pay them fairly, and then raises on top of that, and then a stipend for the fire department. Okay. And that plan cost how much?
The total was $3.3 million.
3.3 million. Okay.
$3,310,975. And that's all the funds,
Okay.
not just general fund.
All right. And then explain the sales tax fund that y'all were going to propose to move into the general fund.
Correct. So there's currently the money it's going to a capital account. And so we proposed to move $2 million from that is currently going to capital into the general fund to cover the cost of the increases. So there, it's the Parkway Capital. It would leave $2,312,127 going to that capital fund, but move $2 million to general.
Okay, so y'all's proposal wasn't just to completely gut that of all capital funds, but just to help find a reoccurring revenue stream for pay raises.
Correct.
Okay. So the amendment on the floor is about a little over $2 million more than what was proposed in the mayor's budget. And we're also going to remove that reoccurring revenue stream. So we're just going to go out of the fund balance. And year-to-date, Ms. Williamson, what is where are we at sales tax-wise compared to prior year? You said in the last meeting, but I don't have those notes in front of me. Were we down 15%?
Yeah, I thought I had that year-to-date. Sorry, I thought I had that.
No, that's-
We have the number for October, but not year-to-date.
Okay, that's fine. What was the October number?
For October, it's down 15.3%.
That's what I thought, 15.3%. And so I bring that up because for the last 3 years, this country as a whole has faced record high inflation. A gallon of milk went from $3 to $4. You know, lumber skyrocketed, causing housing prices to go up. Energy costs have gone up. Everything costs more, and I don't think anybody in this room would disagree that it costs more to go to the grocery store today than it did in 2019 pre-pandemic. And so as inflation is starting to come down and we're starting to get back to pre-pandemic numbers, sales tax is going to come down, correct? I mean, that's basic math. Inflation's not as high, so things aren't going to cost as much, so we don't tax as much. Is that a fair statement?
Well, people don't spend as much either.
And people, yeah. Is that a fair statement, Ms. Williamson?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so while we're projected, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, to put $7 million towards this fund balance this year, to put us a little over $45 million, that might not be the case next year.
Correct.
And of course, we don't have, that's the problem, we don't have a crystal ball. So for the firemen who talked to me earlier who said, how can this bankrupt the city? We've got $45 million in 4 years to figure it out. Or you know what? We have two options at that point. Option number one, we go to the citizens of Bossier City and we ask them to pass more property taxes. And in this government, in today's political climate, people don't trust the government. It's not just Bossier City. They don't trust Shreveport. They don't trust Louisiana. They don't trust the United States. So we expect for them to trust us to pass another millage because we passed something 4 years prior that put us in a bad spot. And option number two is what happened in 2009 when firemen, police officers, municipal employees were let go. And so we can fight hard for pay raises that are deserved. Do not ever say that I say they don't deserve $500, because I've been fighting for pay raises since the day I walked in these doors. And I've been shut down every year. So don't ever accuse me of that.
Are you directing it at
But,
me?
yes, I was, Mr. Montgomery. Yes, absolutely,
Well, then
I
you're
was.
totally
But-
incorrect.
But,
It is a false statement.
but Chris Smith did not vote for $400 million in debt service that we have to pay off. And yes, I've been critical of the debt since the day, and I know we all I'm on an island by myself on that. But that's fine. I will die on that hill that I didn't put us into that $400 million worth of debt. And to me, this proposal is missing any lack of basic accounting understanding and conservatism, because this is saying in 5 years, we've got to figure something else out. Either lay you off or raise your taxes. And so I agree with Mr. Hammonds earlier. He tried to make a motion to postpone this. I think that that would be the wise thing, and I think we need to have a public meeting on how to best do this. I can get on board if the original plan wasn't right, but the original plan at least had reoccurring revenue in it. This one has none, zero, nada. And so I can get on board with that one wasn't good enough. But I do not think that with a 20-minute heads up for an extra $2.2 million that it is appropriate to ask me to make that vote right now. Other councilmen may be privy to this plan before we walked in here, but I wasn't. And now I'm being asked to do this. And this isn't lost on me, that we are pitting employees who deserve money against each other for political reasons.
Okay, I'd ask, you're the president.
Mr. Montgomery, I have the floor.
We continue to get interrupted.
Point of order. Mr. Montgomery, I have the floor.
We
Mr. Montgomery.
continue to have interruptions
Mr. Montgomery,
from
I will have the marshals remove you if
No,
you do
you
not
won't.
play by the rules. I have the floor, and you will let me finish.
And I'm letting you know
Mr.
that we
Montgomery.
have out there. Do you understand that?
Mr. Montgomery.
Do you understand?
Mr. Montgomery, I am running the meeting, not you. If you have an issue, you can raise a point of order. I did not hear you raise a point of order. We're not going to speak out of turn. I'm tired of you walking on everybody around here. Ms. Williamson's scared to death to answer a question, wondering how you're going to respond to it. So I would respectfully ask that we meet with the leadership of the fire department, the leadership of the police department, with the mayor and his staff, and we come up with a true plan that has reoccurring revenue that everybody is happy with. Because I do not think that this is it. And I know you guys want to be paid well. I know you do, but you don't want to sign up for possibly getting laid off in 4 to 5 years if the sales tax goes down. Don't be so nearsighted to not look and see what could happen in the future. So that's it. Is there any other councilman that'd like to speak?
Yeah, Mr. President, acting president.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, what's your thoughts on the $500 per employee across the board?
Well, didn't find that out till this morning or yesterday, wasn't it? Or basically this morning. And I've talked to Ms. Angela and Ms. Amanda and my other staff members. And I'm seeing that it's gonna cost us like the $5 million more a year. And it's gonna pull out of that one fund that's only gonna last us 5 years, which I don't want that to happen. I think there's other ways. I think we need to hold it back, like Mr. Smith's saying, next 2 weeks and work this out. Instead of everybody getting hitting on it just like this, making decisions right now. I think we need to kind of hold back and think it over and get a good game plan for everybody.
Are you for or against every employee getting $500 a month?
Mr. Darby, I want everybody in this damn city to get a raise. I don't care how, it could be $500, $600, $700. I want everybody to get a raise. It just don't have to be $500. I want everybody to get a raise because everybody needs it.
Mr. Mayor, I find it offensive
I
that
find
you
it
use
offensive
curse
you ask that
words
kind of question.
in this public setting. I don't understand that. I mean, I'm asking you something that's simply elementary. You can just say yes or no. I don't understand your profanity use.
Profanity?
and
What did I
your-
say, profanity?
You used profanity just now, sir.
Oh.
But anyway, I just wanted to make sure. Ms. Williamson, if we were to give a cost of living adjustment to every employee, I know it's hard to pinpoint here and now, would it cost as much as we're trying to do here?
It would depend on what percentage you wanted to,
Okay, so
Wanted
it's
to
hard to put a number on it?
I would need to calculate how much it would cost.
Okay, because the greatest concern I have is to support those who support this city. And every person who works for the city of Bossier are supporters, and they deserve to have increase, reoccurring increase. And so in that case, I am totally in favor of both police and fire having increase in every city employee of the city. And whatever way we can do to get that to happen, make that a reality, sign me up to be in favor of it. And I understand, Ms. Smith, your need to have additional information and to discuss that, because I think you have a desire that everybody get an increase as well. And I'm not against more dialogue if need be. And I'm sure Mr. Montgomery wouldn't mind that, because I think he can explain his financial approach adequately at any given time.
And again, we'll have 2 weeks to examine this. So just for clarification purposes, this would basically be reintroducing the budget, and it would be looked at for 2 weeks, discussed, whatever meetings, and then voted on for adoption November 19th, correct? Correct?
Yes.
That, and you
So-
can also amend what has been proposed.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's
So
another option too.
there's certainly the time for everyone to understand, again, what's been proposed from the floor, but I don't want to take your.
No.
So let's get back to this discussion about recurring revenues and the money not being there. Again, historically, we have increased revenues over expenditures by $7 to $8 million a year. We intend to do the same for 2024. And now there's, as I appreciate it, the assumptions being made that we're going to go to 0 increase. And then we're going to start having to use fund balance to fund the $5 million a year. Correct?
What hasn't been clarified is then that we haven't increased our revenues. It's not showing that part. An amendment was not made to increase the revenue to offset this expense.
The amendment wasn't made to increase revenue. We don't, what are you saying?
That
The
this
fund
was here to
balance is
be-
there. It's going to be there at the end of 2024.
But it appears to be an unbalanced budget because our revenue, the way the budget is now, our revenues and expenses zero out. But if this is an increase and we don't have an increase in the revenue, then
Well, that's the assumption that we've made all along, is that we would increase the revenue by the necessary amount. I mean, if we need to provide clarity on that, that is certainly part of the amendment, because what I am debating is that historically, we've had revenues over expenditures of 7 to 8 million, and we expect to do the same in 2024, correct?
Yes, sir.
And again, I don't think that we're going to go to 0 increase and all of a sudden be down $7 million. I don't believe that. But it's not 4 or 5 years. At $5 million a year, and we've got $35 million in surplus, drops us down to the 11, which is the 15% by ordinance that we have to maintain in fund balance. That's 7 years at 5. 7 times 5 is 35. So just providing some more clarity here that we're not going to raise taxes. We took the $2 million to put back into capital because I think it was brought up that we need to do more street work and so forth throughout the community at capital. So why not put the money back? We don't need it now, but it's certainly there. But this council, this body could pass in 6 months from now, take that $2 million and put it in the general fund. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Nothing stops us from providing that amendment down the road. All I'm saying is that we ought to keep that fundamental funding method of capital and operating. So if we don't need to pull the $2 million right now, let's leave it and put it back into the capital budget to do the necessary repairs throughout the community. So that $2 million will always be there. And again, and then speaking to that we're not going to have recurring revenue, that's what the sales tax and property tax is it not? Recurring revenue?
Yes, sir.
That's what the general fund is based on. The fundamental principle of sales tax and property tax. And roughly, sales tax is 80% and property tax is 20%.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, I'm trying to calm whatever fear that's being instilled that this is not a good budget decision. I discussed at length with Ms. Williamson, and this is fundamentally sound from an accounting and financial standpoint, based on the information we have at hand throughout the history and going forward.
Yes, sir.
Certainly, the world could end and things could get bad and there could be a depression, but I mean, we can't live our lives based on that. And then, quite frankly, we've talked about, we have $30 million, do we not? In the rainy day fund, along with the 18, which I really think right now is probably somewhere in excess of 50 million.
That one's 19 right now.
So, well, 48,
So
49
those
million
together.
sitting there in another rainy day fund. So throughout the years, we have taken the necessary precautions to provide this money in the case that things did go bad. How many other municipalities do you know that have enough money to fund government for a whole year? I don't know of many, but that was something that we talked about throughout the years to prepare for that moment. But anyway, I believe that what we have proposed is fundamentally sound. I welcome anybody that would wish to talk over the next 2 weeks to sit down and we can walk through it from a financial standpoint, but and go forward.
I agree.
Okay. Mr. President, may I speak?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I understand where you're coming from, Mr. Montgomery. I guess just the sentiment among some of us is that I wish that we all could have, not all of us, 3 of us, Mr. Settle, could have sat down and maybe discussed this before hit with this right here. My main concern in this city right now, and it's not against any other employees in this city. My main concern right now are our first responders in this city. We have got policemen that are working 8-hour shifts and then going and working some 2, 3 part-time jobs, going home, getting a couple of hours of sleep, then going back and working another 8 hours, then going and working 1, 2, 3 part-time jobs. And they're out here who, when we dial 911, when we're getting shot at, or there's a hostage situation, or there's a car wreck, or they need, I mean, just anything, we need them to be tip-top shape when they show up to those calls. And right now, they're working themselves to death. We've got firefighters that are having to work, some of them working 48-hour shifts just to make enough money to go buy groceries. Same with the police. I see it. I talk to them. I go by the fire stations. I talk to them. You know, the police, I see them sitting there. I'll pull up and talk to them. Hey, man, how's it going? You know, when I pull up, I'm just Brian Hammonds. How are you doing today, man? You need a bottle of water. I'm tired of every time we turn around, hey, we lost 4 more to the state police. Hey, we lost 2 more to the sheriff's department. Why did they leave? Why do you think? Pay. Hey, we lost some firemen to the state fire marshal. Why did they leave? Why do you think? Pay. We can buy all the best equipment in the world and the best cars, the best guns, and the best radios, but without pay, that's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. When they're working themselves to death out there day in, day out, protecting the citizens of Bossier City to make us better. What I'm concerned about is the city of Bossier is not growing. The parish is. The outer lying areas are growing. And, you know, we talk about more tax dollars and everything like that. Yeah, more tax dollars are coming into the parish. That's not in the city. That's not us directly getting those tax dollars. And that's what I'm afraid of, that we have got to figure out a way just to sustain off of what we have here in the city and keep hoping that we attract more businesses here in the city of Bossier. And, you know, with everything going on in this crazy world that we live in right now, it's just a very scary thought of what we are trying to do right now. That's all I have, Mr. President, and I'd like to call the question.
We haven't allowed public comment yet, so.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought we did.
No.
Oh,
Can I make a couple of
Yeah,
comments?
go ahead, Ms. Williams, or Ms. Nottingham.
One thing, the administration, absolutely agrees that every city employee is more than deserving of a raise. I would respectfully ask that you consider, not making it just an across-the-board the same amount, because, we have the data from the salary study to show that some city employees, are at the market minimum, some are grossly below, and I would ask that you would consider allowing us to use the data in our proposal in order to make adjustments as needed for various positions. I believe that in order to do a permanent raise for fire, given what was already budgeted in the one time, we really only have a difference of about $900,000, that with what the proposed budget we presented is, and what, to match that same for the police. And so, if that would be something you would consider, that we can adjust to add that same amount permanently in the fire budget, that same equal amount, but then to allow us to use the data from the salary study to make those adjustments. Because the one-time, or I'm sorry, the $500 a month is incredible, and that's great, but it would still leave 33 of our employees under the market minimum. And so we would like the ability to be able to get everybody up. If we do an across-the-board, we're not closing any gaps as far as where we have some employees who are still going to be at the bare minimum or still below, and some who it's going to push them over the mean. And so that would be the request on behalf of the administration, but I think we really have less of a delta than is perceived. And I think that if we can bridge that gap to, make the same for the fire and the police to have the same amount in their budgets to distribute to their employees, and then it would allow us to make, I think, more meaningful changes for all of the other employees.
How much, what did you tell me, the 33, that was it, $100,000?
All in with benefits, 130, a little over 136,000.
Benefits and all, though?
Yes, sir.
So what's wrong when we do this raise, at taking another look in 2025?
What do you mean? Well, it just still keeps 33 of our employees below the market minimum. It doesn't.
But this market minimum, this is getting into a whole nother subject matter on the salary study, and while those are great and they provide information, it doesn't say that's exactly what we need to do. I see that as possibly a guide going forward.
And that was
right
where
now.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
But that was also where the up to 5% on top of that came in, to be able to make where we don't just have this bare minimum and get people to that, but where we have some latitude to get people, to move the needle, really, for some of those that are extremely low.
So everybody's not gonna get the plus 5%, it's just whatever y'all deem necessary.
Depending on, we wanted to meet with each department head to see, because for some, getting them up to the market minimum is a very large jump. And so then our budget number was, I would say, high, so that we wanted to make sure we had enough to do, enough to make the changes needed, that we feel are needed. But to get everybody up to the market minimum and possibly higher allows us, that gives us a huge advantage in recruiting if we do lose employees. And so that gives us a standard for, it gives us a range for hiring someone new, where we're not behind the 8 ball again, they're not under the market minimum, and we're trying to
So what was your budget number when you when you looked at that?
for with
Getting
everything.
everybody up, yeah.
$3,310,975.
3,300,000 what?
$3,310,975. That includes the one time for the police, which was about, for the fire, which was about 850,000. And so to match what the police are getting, that 1.758 million, we would only need, that difference to about $900,000 to, make that recurring.
So what I would offer, if this minimum floor for these 33 employees, it must mean something to y'all, and that's why you're advocating, correct?
The minimum does, yes, sir.
So why, how about I offer another amendment for the 132,000 to be added into my original amendment, and then that gives the $500 a month for every employee, plus you bring these people up to this minimum level.
It's that, I
you okay
think
with
that's extremely
I don't know what
generous.
the procedure is, Mr. Smith, but if I can,
I just have a question. The reason we're here today is the parity issue between fire and police, which is only a difference of $900,000, give or take.
Approximately.
So while and I know the answer. So Mr. Montgomery's amendment costs 5.5 million. The administration's plan costs 3.3 million. But it's because the administration's plan did not have enormous pay raises for those that are overpaid, according to the salary study.
Correct. It was
So
not
in the
across
spirit
board.
of compromise, why wouldn't we go back to the administration's plan of 3.3 plus $900,000 additional for the fire and save the city of Bossier $1 million?
well, there's a motion on the floor.
I guess we don't compromise.
I've got one question. The 33 employees, are they all out of one
They're not all-
division?
No, sir.
Okay.
They are in various,
Various
different
departments across the
yes, sir.
city?
Correct.
And some are in water and
This,
sewer, so that would be from an enterprise fund.
That'd be from the
so it wouldn't
enterprise
even-
fund.
It wouldn't conflict with the general fund, and all I'm saying is that if this helps your cause, then I would offer the additional money to be included in my original amendment, the 130-something thousand.
Is the 5% across the board or just the 33?
The 5% would be for all the employees that are at the market minimum currently or above. They would get a 5% increase. Then the employees who are currently below the market minimum, the proposal includes bringing them to that market minimum and then up to 5% additional.
Okay.
So the budgeted number does include giving the full 5%, but
5% for people, let's just say the average income's between 40 and 60,000, 5%'s only 1,600 to, 2,000 and something. We're talking about $6,000 a year.
Correct.
Something meaningful, since the last raise given was 2019. And if you actually look at that over an annualized basis, what is that, $1,200 a year raise? About, I'm 6,000. So, again, I believe the money's there. I believe the money's going to be there in the future. Even in the worst-case scenario, we have redundant rainy day funds that's what they're there for, to make sure that we don't end up like we did in 2009, which I believe several of us made a promise at that time that just as this room is filled up today, In '09, it was twice as many people, and some of you may remember, people lost their jobs. It was Christmas time, and I know that I made the promise that I would always look after the fiscal responsibility of this city and ensure that that never happened again. And I make that pledge to you all again today.
I have one, give me just a second. In the Mr. Montgomery's amendment there, does that include monies, does that include everything going into pension, going into, I know we've got two different, for the police department and the fire, we've got two different, we've got the old one that was, I guess is that one completely funded? Are we gonna have to put anything into that?
It depends on if it causes it to become not fully funded because they get a percentage.
Yeah.
But that figure's not.
That
no.
figure's not in
No,
there, so I mean, how much are we?
This is just for city employees.
That's okay, but we could be looking at additional money to go into the other one, correct?
If, potentially,
they're
if it
determined
becomes
not
not
fully
fully
funded.
funded.
Okay.
But the raise is the raise.
Yeah, but I mean, I mean, the raise, I mean, if I have this correct, I mean, there's raises across the board. I mean, the police gets a raise, the fire, the retirees get a raise too, correct?
Yes, not a full, it's some percentage, yeah.
Yeah, but it's still something, and is
Yeah.
that in there?
No, because they have funds, the pensions have their own funds where they pay their
Which
checks
could
out
lead
of.
to, which could lead to
Which-
that one not being fully funded.
Potentially, yes.
Okay. I don't have any more questions right now.
All right. Is there any other questions or comments from the council? All right, we'll open it up for public comment. And to be clear, we're commenting on the amendment that has been proposed.
I agree. David Crockett, 653 Domain Drive, Bossier City, Louisiana. I thought the Nostradamus of Bossier City Council spoke at the very beginning of this meeting, which was the best thing that could have been recommended. If there was this much disagreement because you had a meeting just before the meeting that you knew you weren't going to agree on it, you probably should have just delayed it a week and had that meeting that Mr. Hammonds mentioned. I think there are a lot of things, doing math this quick and trying to do this in this public forum is good because these people need to hear that you care. But the other thing is, there are a lot of things that are not being considered right now. The governor's tax change, that's another $1 million. The $5 million that you have in excess almost every year right now is sometimes because you're usually between 30 and 35 employees short in the city staff all the time. You're right now 22 policemen short, so your revenue, your excess revenue at the end of the year is because you're not able to recruit and hire. You just did a huge salary study that we haven't had time to really look at it. The people haven't, which people have been asking about. I think we should get that out so other people can make comments to their councilmen. But to just throw it out and do it in blanket, you're not addressing the recruiting issues. You know, you've got a lot of issues that need to go into this. So I appreciate, Mr. Smith, you getting control of this and giving a good discussion. But I do believe that there are other issues to do with the revenues that have not been considered in this. And you don't just throw it up and splatter it on the wall and come up with a decision, and that's what it looks like. I do remember, because I watched the public meeting that you had, the workshop, and this discussion perhaps should have happened at the workshop part of this whole thing in the beginning, and then you could have just, any way you did it, it would have been fine. But it seems like to me that there's been 3 weeks since the workshop. Everybody here should go watch the workshop. There are some other issues with this. There is $30 million that I brought up in the last meeting about in the casino trust fund, that money or that revenue could be considered. So there is a reasonable approach. That money can be reappropriated by the vote of this council. So there maybe is a better pay raise than what the city had already considered, which is what everybody would think about. But no one in here wants to break the city. So I just suggest that y'all put this off. You can't, doing math in public like that, there are too many issues that have been just disregarded in this discussion. So I would agree with the president that, and Mr. Hammond's, I'd delay.
West Marriott 211 Shadow Ridge Drive. Who seconded the amendment?
Mr. Williams?
Mr. Williams.
Okay, thank you. So the councilman who has said he's not running and the councilman who has also said he's not running, they're both offering an amendment that seems like it's setting the building on fire, and then they're going to walk out the door. I do have a copy of the minutes of the workshop that we had last month, where the administration proposed a plan, and members of the public were here, and members of the fire department and the police department were here. The problem is, and thankfully I found a copy of the salary study. It was in the dumpster behind Mr. Montgomery's office, but the salary study has been completely disregarded in some of these recommendations that are offered in this amendment. This is a Band-Aid that is lazy, and it ignores the thousands, maybe the tens of thousands. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think this cost $76,000. You spent $76,000 and spent a year on a salary study that we're now completely disregarding. So we're going to give $500 to every single person in Bossier City who's a city employee. That's great. Great job. I'm sure that means a lot to Chief Zagone and Chief Haugen. They probably spent more money on spilt liquor than $500 each month. That does not mean a hill of beans to them. What means more is $6,000 to the wastewater employees. I'm sorry, are you interrupting me?
I am. Mr. President, he needs to be warned about slanderous and
There's nothing
impertinent
slanderous
remarks.
about saying that money doesn't matter to them. They make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Don't interrupt me, I'm talking, okay? What it matters to, or to the people that are on the ground, on the line, $500 is a pittance when this recommends that you go to the market minimum. And we're not doing that in several cases. You're ignoring it. You're saying, hey, everybody gets $500. For some, that's great. For some, it doesn't matter. That's why this is lazy, and you need to pay attention instead of ignoring the people. You're ignoring the police officers that are going to come to your house if you lived in the city if you had a problem. They're going to come to your house if you had a problem. But you're going to say, here's $500, ignoring that the market maximum for the fire department is way low. They should be earning way more than $500 if they've been in that driver position for 5 years. They should be earning way more than $500 extra a month if they've been a captain for more than 5 years. You spent $76,000 on 32 pages, and you tossed it in the dumpster behind your office. This is lazy. You had a workshop. You ignored it. Go back to the drawing board. You've got a month before you have to have this done, and do it right. This is pathetic.
For the record, Mr. Smith, we don't have a dumpster in our office. And also the trash cans on the side of the office. And all of our documents were shredded. I shredded,
That's
so.
the only part you heard, sir.
Let's not comment from the audience, please.
It
Okay.
just speaks to the character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Is there any other public comment?
Afternoon. I just want to say that in the proposed budget that we have through the mayor, that 7% that was in there for the police department was strictly in there to put us in parity with the fire department. When we do, and we appreciate $500 a month would be huge. It's more than the 7 that we even asked for. But when we do across the boards with rank structure, we've created gaps between police and fire. And it's no knock to them. Love the fire department. I love our police department, obviously. But something, the last several raises that we've had where we've done them across the boards, it's created a difference in there. So the 7% that was before you with the mayor's budget, all that did was close that up and make it back to where it was equal. I would ask that if we did across the board, instead of doing it exact amount per employee, that we more or less mirrored the fire department and did it by percentage base with the rank structure that we do have.
And trust me, we're friends, but up here we debate a little bit. But in reality, and I'm not bashing the police or anything else, but don't forget, they work 60 hours in a week, not 40. So, I mean, they work 120 hours every pay period, which they're 24-hour shifts, I get it. But there's a lot of talk about police, you hear a lot, and you hear less about firefighters. It seems like when we hear these stories, and I agree with the whatever amount you give the fire, you give the police, and then we can figure out how to divvy it up. He and I can work together to try to bring things along the lines. But it's not the fire department's fault that they passed state laws years and years ago that protect them for a certain amount for drivers, captains, district chiefs. I mean, I just feel like sometimes it's negative about that, but it's not a negative thing. If you will let us work it, we can work it just like you knew. The 500 would be awesome, and just a certain amount of money. Now, we'll have to plug in formulas, and it'll take a while to figure out the exact amount to make sure that it equals out amongst everybody to where you maintain and don't have to do a back pay like we did 10 years ago or whatever, so.
And that was why in the amendment, we talked about the sum of money as we've done in the past to allow y'all. And I'm certainly agreeable to that. If that's what you would rather, is that something, Phyllis, I would have to change? Or,
You can change that if you'd like to change it.
I mean, do we have to, or can he utilize the money, the funding?
Right now, you said $500 a month raise for all non-civil service employees, police officers, and firefighters. Do you want it to say funding amounts shall be 1.8 million each for fire and police for parity purposes?
Sure. Sure.
$500 across the board?
If that clears it up, Mr. Smith, I'll make that
Okay,
motion to amend based on Chief Haugen's recommendation.
And I'll second that. Y'all okay with that, though?
It would allow us to get more percentage-based and not just an across-the-board, because like I said, I think the last one was voted on in 2018, but it was for the 2019 year budget, what created a separation. And that's, like I said, that's when we proposed it, that's all we proposed was just to close that back, but that's what created it, was because we don't have it in state law, and it, like you said, it's not their fault, but that's what these guys, you know, if you need somebody, police and fire's coming. You know what I'm saying? So I agree with the parity, and all of those numbers are based strictly off of base pay. We didn't look at any incentives. You know, I mean, a paramedic's not far from a nurse. They deserve what they get, and I'm not trying to take that away from them. But we talk about parity. If we're gonna have parity, then let's have parity.
That's what we want, and if, like I said, as long as y'all are okay with it, and y'all can figure it out between yourselves,
Let y'all do.
I'm happy as a
Just to
lark.
piggyback on that comment, we did sit per some requests of some of y'all with the police department in 2019 and handed them that information. What happened from there, I can't answer.
Chief, we let y'all work that out. That'd be good.
Mr. Montgomery,
Chief Haugen, with that.
Hold on
Oh,
a
I'm
second.
sorry.
Ms. Phyllis has a question,
what
Mr. Montgomery.
and Mr. Montgomery, you did withdraw your first motion.
Yeah,
Yes.
I withdraw that and offer
Make that second one. Okay.
whatever
Yes, sir.
the recommendation you said. I think Mr. Williams seconded.
Yes, sir.
So we're good. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for coming up and sharing that.
Yeah, Chief Haugen, but doing it that way, is that gonna help y'all with recruiting?
Well, absolutely. That would get our starting pay up. I mean, if we just went off the basic number, $6,000 a year, that'd put us at the top of the list. We would be above the other agencies surrounding us.
That's good. That's what we need.
But you're proposing to do it a little different. too.
I am.
Yeah.
I'm proposing more. Our starting pay needs to be the same. Police don't,
Yeah.
you know, you don't want to walk up to the city complex and be like, do I want police or fire? Well, they pay more.
Yeah.
They need to, you know, it needs to be in their heart. If they want to be a fireman, then they go to the fire department, starting off the same amount of money. And right now, that part is equal. Every step past that, the very first step on the police department, we're actually about $50 more a month. Everything past that is somewhere between 4.5% to 8.5% that we're on the lower end of the fire department.
This will help you from corporal to sergeant, sergeant to
Absolutely.
lieutenant,
Yeah,
lieutenant to
it'll kinda-
captain. This will help y'all work that out all across the board.
Yes, and I would propose that we do it
Yeah,
together.
we'll
Like
let
you
you-
said, I mean, you know.
It's not gonna be exact, but in the salary study, it showed that the ranks above firefighter were where we needed to do the work and not meet the bare minimum. Therefore, if we did that and say one day y'all wanted to come in and give a $200 across the board raise, you would have that option. And it wouldn't put us out of, which it would now, because we don't have enough lagniappe in the law gaps for you to do a standard across the board raise. Where if you had that and had a little gap in there, you would have the lagniappe to do a $200 or $300 across the board raise.
All right, let me ask y'all both one question. Why'd you sit over there and let us bitch and moan instead of coming up telling us this?
None of us like to talk.
Well, you-
But yeah,
Hey, I do have a is the starting pay of fire and police officers the same?
they make $18 a month more than us. if I'm
Eight,
not
okay.
15, or,
15?
yeah, exactly $15.
I was led to believe the police got paid way more than a starting firefighter, so.
$15, way more, man.
Okay.
Chief, in our committee, we talked about retention. So this increase, will that address retention, in your opinion? Okay, because that was one of the things that came out of that committee, that we definitely want to try to keep those who are seasoned officers, and they bring a lot to the table. We don't want to lose them. Okay,
Those are the ones that are expensive.
Yes,
You know, the ones that have been there a
exactly.
while. But my personal opinion, a lot of it is it starts with those new hires, because right now, we're 22 people down, which means these guys, it's been said time and time and time again, that, I mean, they're working their normal job, they're working overtime. That's what wears them out. That's what makes them leave. Of course, there's money involved. When you can go to another agency and make more money, that's key as well. But, you know, when you work an 8-hour shift and then you're mandated to work another 4, and then you go home and you get 4 hours of sleep and you're mandated to come in and work the jail, at some point in time, you're just, I can't do it. You know, so they're leaving for those reasons as well as others. But I feel like if we can start recruiting on the bottom end and get those numbers back up to where these guys can do 8 hours, and then if they choose to go work a part-time, then that's on them. But right now, they're having to for the police department, not for outside entities.
Okay,
So,
thank you. And my other thing is to address Ms. Nottingham concern.
Chief, excuse me, Judge, in your budget, are your positions that's not filled, are they still funded?
do what now?
The positions that's not filled that you're looking at, are they still funded in the
For
budget?
this current year right now? No, we use that as a training stipend pay.
So
Go ahead, Mr.
with Mr. Montgomery's amendment, will it allow you discretion in order to do the percentage and for those 33 employees that you talked about?
I would ask for clarification. That's similar, they worded it much better than I did on giving us the discretion to do that where it's not strictly across the board, but I would ask for just clarification on exactly what.
So I think based on the compromise already spoken, Ms. Montgomery would not mind making sure that's a part of the formula going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I can amend the motion to include the $30,000 to increase whatever those floors are from the study. I'm happy to put that in addition,
Okay.
so we'll add that.
So
What is-
Mr. Montgomery's going to
I'm
withdraw
gonna
that
withdraw.
motion and make another motion to include,
What is that amount, Ms. Nottingham?
133?
Can I make a recommendation?
Okay.
If it's your,
Can I finish this one first?
oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting, you know what I mean? Do you mind?
No, sir.
And then I can always amend it. We can sit here, we can order in pizza and whatever else. Right now, I'd like to amend again, withdraw, as Mr. Smith said, that motion, and then add your whatever that number is, $130,000 to bring those 33 positions up to the minimum level of the study.
Ms. Williams said 136, 361? 161.
Okay, thanks. And then.
All right, is there a second on that, Mr. Williams?
Can all three of y'all smile at one time? We're done, huh?
Okay, so we got a new motion now made by Mr. Montgomery and Mr. Williams. Now y'all can go.
That was it. I just wanted clarification on that to make sure we were all on the same page, so.
Okay. Chief Sagon, you were going to say something?
I was just gonna say, you could just give that one amount of money, whatever that is, just like we're doing, and figure it out, if that made it easier for you.
No. No, I'm a firm believer over the years that we've served that the majority of the employees are in that middle, and I think they deserve the $6,000 a year. I mean, I think that hits the majority of the people, and And it, you know, they just deserve it. That's all there is to it. So,
On behalf of the city employees, I know that this is extremely, extremely appreciated, and on behalf of the administration, it is extremely appreciated, and we thank you very much for recognizing that.
And on behalf of the fire department, I echo that 100%. Thank you very much.
Me as well. You've got a lot of smiling faces sitting behind me, so.
Yeah, and on behalf of the city council, we appreciate your communicating clearly what works. That's what we have to have, communication. And you guys communicated today, right there. And it works every time when you have communication. Ms. Clerk, the budget study, if I remember correctly, it was posted when it was done, right?
It's on the city
It was-
website.
We sent it to.
So it is public information.
Oh,
It's not
the
hidden.
proposed budget?
No, the salary
salary
study.
Salary
Oh,
study.
it has not been posted publicly. It's available.
Okay.
Anybody can request it.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so you can request it. So if Mr. Crocker want to request that, he can get that. It was one other.
So I'm going to read the motion again.
Okay.
Just to verify. And since it is a new motion, we do have to open it up for public comment again. Motion to amend all operating budgets to take out administration proposal from the budget for raises and replace with a $500 a month raise for all non-civil service employees, and allow step increases for fire as appropriate, and funding amounts shall be $1.8 million each for fire and police for parity purposes, and also include an additional salary of $136,161 to bring any employees up to the market minimum according to the salary study.
additional funding, not salary. I mean, it's for salaries, but we're adding $130-something thousand of funding
Additional funding.
for those salary increases to reach the minimum of the study.
Okay.
Shane Culver, 620 Benton Road. I'm a captain with the Bossier Police Department. Been there 31 years, come January. 2.5 years ago, we tried to get a raise, but there was no funding in the budget. City Council decided to do a staff study, which Nottingham has, and it stated that the police department.
Could you step
was
a little bit closer to the mic so that they can?
Yeah, it stated that the police department was below what the fire department is. And in that budget, it was 1.76 million, which rounded up. By requesting the fire department to get 1.7 as well, then that staff study doesn't matter. You're increasing their salary, but you're not increasing ours. You're not bringing us up to them, is what I'm saying. Bring us up to them, and then you want to do the $500 across the board, then do the 500 for both of us at that point. But the staff study and raising the millage forward next year was for the $3 million or whatever it was to bring the raises for the city. And that raise isn't for bottom line, it's just to bring us up with the fire department. And I understand where they're at, and I understand that, hey, $500 or anything is better than nothing. But the staff study was done, and the staff study showed that we were underpaid from the fire department. That's the parity. Y'all keep saying parity, but the $1.76 million was to bring the parity up. By increasing their budget by 1.7, now we're below their parity. It's not parity anymore. That's what you have. And all of a sudden now y'all have $5 million, you have this golden goose of $5 million that y'all can spend. For the last 2.5 years, there's been no money. So I don't understand that. I don't think these police officers understand that. 2.5 years ago, 2 citizens were killed. 1 was wounded, and an officer was wounded. Everybody up here said, hey, y'all need a raise. 3 months later, nothing was ever said about it.
And I understand that the fire department is based off of civil service. Their raises are based off of civil service. There's a percentage. Then bring us up to them too. We're the ones out here with the bulletproof vests on getting shot at. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment? Yes.
West Marriott, 211, Silver Live. Captain Culver's comments are well-received, and they shouldn't be ignored. And they are based in fact. And there is something, I'm glad the chiefs are happy. I'm glad there's a measure of compromise, but there's still two issues that remain with the amendment, with this new amendment, the third amendment. The salary study made two recommendations as it pertains to the police department and the fire department. It said the police department was underpaid, and it said it's going to cost $1.3 million to bring them up to par. Now, they bore that across all of their incumbents, but a majority of that was the police department. But you're also skipping the fact that we're ignoring the firefighter pay maximums, which are not on par with their regional peers. And so this Band-Aid that I think has been addressed a little bit by the percentages, by applying the same amount to each department, it does put you back into the same category where we were a couple years ago, where you could say, hey, maybe there's not parity. However, by pitting these two classes of fine individuals against each other, you're ignoring the much more important thing, is that we've created an unfunded liability that 10 years from now, 15 years from now, the building is on fire, and God forbid these unknown sales tax revenue surpluses, if they don't exist, our rainy day account is gone. Our fund balance is depleted, and we're not spending money on pay raises that has any recurring revenue paying for it. So we've focused a lot on the money that's going to these gentlemen, but in a couple years, we may be laying half of them off, or the next generation off, because we don't have the money to sustain it. And nobody besides Mr. Hammonds and Mr. Smith have said, where is the recurring revenue that's going to prevent us from being in another 2008 situation where we have to have mass layoffs? So we have to sustain this. It has to make sense. It needs to be fair, but don't let the police-fire disparity ignore the fact that we have to be able to afford it. And taking it out of our savings account, I don't think is the best way to pay for this. It just doesn't make sense.
David Crockett, 653 Domain Drive, Bossier City, Louisiana. This just baffles me. I spent 30 years in the military. I would never run a railroad like this. I wouldn't run a squadron like this, and my wing commander would fire me. That you're doing math in your head, you're forgetting things. If you do the math, the shortages in the staff in Bossier City are a lot of that $5 million that you're assuming that you've got going forward. If you want to put yourself into a 2009 crisis, which you've never really recovered from, because I will guarantee you the police force would say to you that they need those 10 policemen that you let fall off the books, because that way they wouldn't be working as much overtime. They would have more guards. They would have whatever they needed. So I guess I just can't get it. You are the leaders in Bossier City. You have another month to get this done. The mayor, give it back to the mayor who is responsible for submitting a budget. Right now, nobody knows what this looks like. We don't know what you're voting on. Everything you put in front of us that we could look at ahead of time as a public, which I know I don't pay residence taxes, but I do all my sales taxes. I care what happens in Bossier City because I drive through these streets. Very, very smart people. The CAO, the mayor's staff, Miss Williamson is she is nervous about this because she don't want to throw something out here that fails. There are a lot of things that you haven't considered because you haven't given it to them and just said, go through it with a clean slate. The best thing that came out of that salary study is that it broke out the areas that you need. But you're going to say, I'm going to do that. I mean, to me, and I know you've varied from that now, that you're going to just do $500 a person. why in the crap did you do a salary study? A year ago, these people could already had a pay raise if you weren't going to use your salary study. So why'd you do it? Do your business smart. That's what I've been complaining about in this city council for 2.5 years. I mean, kudos to you for discussing something in public, but I absolutely believe that the mayor and the staff need to do this and then put something back to you with the general guidance that some of it may be good from Mr. Montgomery on where he wants to go with this, but why are you going to insert this much uncertainty without going back to the drawing board and then giving the public something to comment on, and you've got a whole month? I don't understand why you're trying to do this. Let me make sure I covered all my comments. You haven't addressed one of the key points that I thought was brought up in the workshop was, you know, why aren't you considering hiring bonuses? That's chump change because that's only a one-time thing. But why won't you consider things like that? Because you got to fill the gaps. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Crockett. Any other public comment? Any additional comments from the council? All right, so we are voting on the amendment,
On Mr. Montgomery's First Amendment.
First Amendment.
Not first, third.
Oh, she meant
Oh,
this,
yeah.
the other amendments. to
I'm
sales
sorry,
tax.
I'm fine.
Yes, sir. Okay. Let's vote.
Is it popping up?
No. There it is.
It's tired. Motion carries. All right.
All right,
Did
so
you-
Mr. Montgomery, you want to make a motion now to make an amendment for the Parkway Capital Fund to be removed from general and go back to capital? Is that correct?
Yeah, do I need to make it again?
We didn't vote on that.
make-
We just voted on the raise part.
Yeah, what, I make the
Parkway.
motion that we put that sales tax, Parkway sales tax money back into capital. If it becomes necessary in the future, we can always put it back in there. So, very simple fix, but right now, I think that we ought to leave it in capital until we absolutely need it in operating. So that's my motion.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Williams. All right, is there any public comment on this being moved back in, on this amendment of moving this fund back into capital? Any comment from the council? All right, cast your vote.
Motion carries, and I believe we need Angela, do we need another one?
All right, so now we need to make a motion to,
Hold on just a moment, Mr.
Okay.
Smith, I'm sorry. Yes, that was in the first one.
Approve the budget as amended. You want me to make that motion?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Make the motion, we approve the budget as amended
Um,
for both
enter-
1 and 2.
Reintroduce the.
Or
Reintroduce.
reintroduce. Yeah, it has to be a first reading. I'll make the motion, we reintroduce based on or with the 2 amendments that have been voted on.
Yes, sir. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that, fellas.
All right, so second by Mr. Williams. Is there any public comment? We're voting, reintroducing the budget as previously amended.
I'll make this real quick. David Crockett, 653 Domain Drive. What are you voting on? What does it look like? What does a piece of paper look like? How much is on each line? They're going to have to go back and take what you've just said you want to do, and they're going to have to go back and do the math and figure out what it looks like. So you're voting on something that you don't even know what it is. You're taking a concept that's being shotgunned out to the public. How irresponsible is this? You're the leaders in Bossier City. What's going on here? The best, again, Mr. Hammond said at the beginning of this meeting, go back and do it again. Why would you do this? it's reckless. I mean, you're the leadership in Bossier City. Now, I know these two, the police and the fire chief, are the best that you can ever hire. And they're not gonna send these guys out to go do something with half information and go out and do something reckless, because they might kill somebody. So if you want another 2009 and you want to really make this look bad, just continue down this path. Because I would not, if you brought Ms. Williamson up here and said, do you know exactly what this all looks like right now? She would tell you, no, I don't. And that's what you're voting for. This is what you get out of 34 and 38 years of experience. Not what, there's a thing called the Abilene paradox. You could almost use the same analogy with something like the Pied Piper. Are you going to follow the Pied Piper, or are you going to show leadership? Read about the Abilene paradox. You're going to continue down a path and not ask the right question, or not delay, or not say, hey, why do we need to go to Abilene? We really weren't going there for any real purpose. And you're going to cause problems for Bossier City. Why won't you consider just putting this off and looking at it on paper so that you can do your regular approval of a budget that you can look at? Why wouldn't you do that? I mean, Mr. Free, I think you're running for mayor. You've thought about it. Mr. Maggio, I know you may have thought about it too. Is that leadership? Is that leadership? Is that what you'd want to be run around like? Give the mayor and his great CAO the opportunity to look at what you're doing and break it down and say, this is what makes sense. And then it doesn't sound like you've even looked at the salary scale that you're going to be implementing. So you, as councilman, when you won't even let the mayor hire and fire his employees, but you'll approve a salary study, you'll approve a salary scale by giving it to somebody else. So I don't see any rhyme or reason in this. Thank you.
This is a new motion.
West Marriott, 211 Shadow Ridge Drive, Bossier City, Louisiana. The budget as amended has not been presented. As Colonel Crockett has wisely stated, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist on paper. It didn't exist 3 hours ago. It was created by committee, and I think it's unfair to the city, to the citizens of Bossier. It's unfair to the police department. It's unfair to the fire department to move forward with something that is not in black and white. Underneath my I voted sticker, I have my Republican State Central Committee pin, and I'd like to think that the values of the Republican Party guide my beliefs about these financial transactions, especially considering this is public money. Right now, you're voting to approve public money. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to every time somebody pumps gas, buys their groceries. They're paying you to run the government. And you're saying, we just created a budget via conversation, and now we're going to pass it forward, and it doesn't exist in black and white? That's not financial transparency. It also may violate the open meetings law. Title 42, Chapter 19, you can look it up, requires that public bodies have to post certain information prior to meetings so that the public can be aware about what they're talking about. And it says specifically, you cannot change things via amendment to circumvent the requirements of public notice. I know that the amendment offered today was workshopped, at least in part, before today. I think several council members have hinted that there were some conversations that happened. The fact that it all came out today, I think, is irresponsible government, and I think it violates the open meeting law. I don't think we'll hear the end of it. I don't think we should continue voting for this budget today. It doesn't exist. You're voting on a concept. You're not voting on anything that anyone has seen, and there's no rush to do it. The LGBA doesn't require you to have this budget completed until December 1st. There's no rush. Don't do it. It's bad government.
All right, is there any other public comment on the budget as amended? Any comments from the council? I do just want to say for the record before we vote that Ms. Williamson and Ms. Nottingham I will be making a meeting, we're gonna discuss this. I'm having a lot of heartburn on the funding mechanism behind this. And that's it. It has nothing to do about what anybody deserves. I'm having real heartburn over approving something in 2 weeks that I think is probably gonna put us in a bad spot in the near future. So I just wanna make that for the record.
And it's my understanding that when we talk about fund balance, that would be used to make these changes for the proposed 2025 budget, but that moving forward will adjust revenues accordingly, because historically we have been over, our revenue has exceeded what we've budgeted. So am I saying that?
We underestimated our revenue growth,
Right.
and we had done that because of COVID, so that we would ensure, and I'd had these conversations with Ms. Williamson and Tommy, that we should not look at that growth not expected. We actually far exceeded the revenue growth over the years during COVID, post-COVID, and anyways, does that answer your question?
I wanna make sure
So, yes, we're
I'm
gonna
saying-
utilize what historically we've done from a revenue stream so that it funds on a recurring basis, the additional $5 million.
And our charter
Or
does allow for
5.3,
us
whatever it is.
to take into account excess for the current year in that so that is one of the provisions of the charter, and that's my understanding of how we're doing it moving forward, and then we'll adjust the revenue to account for this increased expense in future budgets.
And just so I'm clear too, I'm not necessarily discussing, when I say, coming up with ideas on funding this, I'm talking about leaving nothing off the table. I've talked about generating more revenue via Parks and Recs
Yes.
if it's advertisement at Tinsley Park. I've talked about all types of creative ways that we can bring more revenue into the city. And so over the next 2 weeks, I would like to have a meeting with the mayor's office, and let's put a plan on pen and paper that I can feel comfortable with in 2 weeks when we have to adopt this, because right now I don't feel comfortable. I'm voting for it to move forward so we can continue the dialogue and the discussion, but that is not indicative of my vote in 2 weeks, because I need to know that we are gonna get creative and figure out ways that we can solve our, I don't wanna use the word issues, but we can keep Bossier City moving forward. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
All right, is there any other comments from the council? All right, council, please cast your vote.
Motion carries.
All right. Number 28.
Adopt an ordinance appropriating $2,800,000 from the 2018 LCDA Bond Fund and approving report of change order 12 for the construction of Citizens Bank Drive roadway extension in the amount of $2,533,740.91 for the Walter O. Bigby Carriageway Phase 2 project. Final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Montgomery, second by Mr. Maggio. Is there any public comment? Any comment from the council?
Yeah, I need some clarification on this. Is this mandated? I know that this was from an ordinance back in, I can't remember when it was, where this all came about. Is this mandated by the DOTD for this road to be in?
Asking Ben?
My appreciation, Councilman Hammonds, is it's being mandated by a city ordinance.
that ordinance can be revoked though, correct? I mean, the only thing that I'm questioning, I mean, you know, it's all for going into Green Acres Office Park, but the way the medians and everything are, it does not affect Green Acres Office Park north or south direction. You can turn in going north, you can turn in going south. It really doesn't affect the entrance in and out of that office park.
You're saying the raised median doesn't?
Yeah, the raised
impact-
median
yeah.
does not affect that at all.
And Councilman Hammonds, unfortunately, I don't know the history behind that, but I do believe that there were negotiations as it related to how property was gonna be impacted there. And this is anecdotal, but the concern by the folks in the office park was that when you have a red light, that you could get stacking of cars, you know, during high volume periods of day where they're not able to get out. So,
But if we looked at it from that way, that would be half the businesses in Bossier. Chick-fil-A, I mean, traffic on Airline Drive trying to turn into Chick-fil-A, turn into Sam's, everywhere else. It's an awful lot of money for a little street, awful lot of money. And that's just the questions that I had, is this really needed? In my opinion, it's not, but I'm just one opinion. I don't think that this is needing when you have access. I mean, in my opinion, a red light would help them get out. You got cars stopping, people are nice in Bossier, they let everybody out in different directions. When it's backed up at Shed and Benton, that one strip center right there, you know, people let people in and out. I think we need to look at this long and hard and a little bit more before we, just my personal opinion, before we make this decision on putting this, street in.
any other questions?
I didn't mean to make you drop your binder.
While you're picking that up, I've got a public comment. David Crockett, 653 Dumaine Drive. What I've found is that this was done by resolution. I don't even think you're legal to do what you just did by making an agreement with businesses or anything like that, because I think in fact, I know it requires an ordinance to make an agreement. In the last meeting, I tried to find, I said at the end of the meeting, or at the end of this budget, or this item, that I'd like to know what the agreement was. And I was going to do a public information request on this because I'd like to see what the agreement was. And Mr. Hammonds, I drove out there and looked at this. It only affects one business. The other business already has a driveway that goes beside it along Citizens Bank Drive. So it's only the stereo business, whatever the name of that, Scott's Audio or whatever. It's for one business, $2.8 million. That's what I said in the last meeting. You were absent. So you're absolutely right. But, I mean, we still got a lot of them. So, again, you know, the way, if you spend money on projects like this without going back to the drawing board, because I looked at it on GPS. There's an issue with the structures that are around there. I'm sure Ben's looked at that, but it just makes no sense. You are paying $2.8 million for not even 200 yards. $2.8 million. So it just seems like to me. Now, I did not get a good picture of it, but it looks like that if you just extended it a little bit and made it a right turn, you could go right in between the two businesses if that's acceptable. But I don't know what you agreed to. I don't think you can make agreements. So again, follow your charter. You cannot make agreements that obligate the city of Bossier City without an ordinance, and you did it by resolution. It's resolution number 15 of 2020, resolution recognizing Mark Hudson's letter, and it was on the subject. So you can't do that. Again, quit violating your charter. That's what we keep saying.
Just to be clear, Mr. Crockett, ordinance 105 of 2022 is what addresses this. So there is an ordinance. It was 105 of 2022.
I'll go look, okay, I'll go look at it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I asked the same question at the last council meeting, and the clerk provided that to me. Thank you.
West Marriott, 211 Shadow Ridge Drive, Bossier City, Louisiana. In keeping in with the same spirit of the comments of Colonel Crockett, and the comments of Councilman Hammonds, I do think the cost relative to the benefit of Bossier City is astronomically inadequate. $2.8 million for a relatively short stretch would make this, again, one of the most expensive roadway projects per foot in Louisiana history. Very close to what the Walter O. Bigby costs were, which were very expensive per foot. The problem is you now have an equal protection problem. You've made an agreement to say, hey, this roadway is now going to create a blockage for a certain avenue of access, and we're going to make some special agreement to spend taxpayer money to fix what we're creating by this new avenue of the Walter O. Bigby, which was called a road project back in 2020. But if you go back to the intersection of Barksdale Boulevard and Jimmy Davis in South Bossier, where I grew up and I come from, we made significant improvements to that intersection in the northbound lane. And what we put in was a raised median that you cannot cross. And what you did is you limited access northbound into several businesses, and now they have to go northbound and make a U-turn and come back. And so every time DOTD makes a change, are we going to say we as Bossier City are going to obligate every single business gets a right-of-way to come whichever direction? It's asinine. And it creates an equal protection litigation obligation against the city. If we do it for one, we've got to do it for everybody. We didn't do it for Circle K at Jimmy Davis and Barksdale. We don't have to do it for Scott's Audio. And maybe we should have a little more foresight when we're planning these $80 million projects that we don't piss off all of these business owners. It's not wise to spend $2.8 million on an oversight, and it's not wise to burden the citizens 4 years into the future for a problem that we're creating. Thank you.
I guess I got one more. I'm sorry, Ben. I don't mean to get the original. I guess we may be talking about two different things here. So this is just going into Scott's Audio and Trim. This is not going all the way in. I thought at one time it was going all the way into Green Acres Office Park, and then in another one veering off for Scott's.
Yeah, the intent is to connect Citizens Bank Drive, basically extend it north to the Green Acres Office Park.
Okay.
We already completed phase one of that.
Yeah.
Right there, wraps around Brigham Diddle.
Yeah.
The project also includes a drive for Scott's Audio for those customers to be able to have access to Citizens Bank Drive from the rear of his property.
Yeah, the picture's only showing it going into Scott's. It's not showing going all the way over to
The
there.
complete project.
Okay, all right. I understand that Mr. Boswell he is cut off from his business going one direction. One thing that I would ask if we can kind of work with the contractor, I see that they've got in here for temporary signs and barricades, $210,000. I mean, that street's, there's no traffic there. I don't see why they would need $210,000 worth barricades. It's under item 713-01000100. But I mean, we can go over that later, but that's all I have.
All right, is there any other public comment or comment from the council? All right, council, please cast your vote.
Motion carries. Adopt an ordinance requesting the destruction of the 2016 Motorola in-car camera systems and communications equipment. Final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Montgomery, second by Mr. Maggio. Is there any public comment? Any comment from the council? All right, council, please cast your vote.
Motion carries. Adopt an ordinance to contract with Neil Schaefer to provide a traffic study for the intersection of Arthur Ray Teague Parkway and Shady Grove Drive. Final reading.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Montgomery, second by Mr. Maggio. Ben has public comment.
I was just gonna, there were some questions asked by Councilman Montgomery last time. That we've taken a look at this over the last couple of weeks, and want to be clear, we don't believe, now, the study could come and tell us something else, but we don't believe there's gonna be a signal warrant there. The intent is to look specifically, like you had suggested, at what can we do there to improve some of those safety concerns. So predominantly, some of our concerns being when you're going westbound and you're making a left turn to go south, providing some areas of refuge for those, travelers to get into a pocket before they have to merge into that oncoming traffic. So so it's clear, that's what we'll be looking at.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, is there any other public comment? Any comments from the council? All right, cast your vote.
Motion carries.
New business.
Adopt an ordinance amending ordinance number 133 of 2018 by changing the zoning classification of a certain tract of land being 2.908 acres more or less from RLD residential low density to B2 limited business located at the north intersection of Jacqueline Street and Old Minden Road, Bossier City, Louisiana, for a proposed urgent care facility, first and final reading, and favorable by MPC.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Montgomery, second by Mr. Free. Is there any public comment? Any comment from the council? Council, please cast your vote.
Motion carries. Adopt an ordinance amending ordinance number 133 of 2018 by changing the zoning classification of a certain tract of land being 5.773 acres more or less from RA residential agriculture and B3 general business to B3 general business located at southwest of Bodacious Barbecue, Bossier City, Louisiana, for a proposed intermediate care facility, the Ark of Acadiana, first and final reading, and favorable by MPC.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Montgomery, second by Mr. Maggio. Is there any public comment? Any comment from the council?
Yeah, I do. Ms. Brown, I've had several people reach out to me about this. Can you kind of explain what this is gonna be? Is it a rehab?
It's a care facility for special needs adults.
Okay.
So they do hybrid, they do some in-house care, they do some on-site living care, and I believe they also do in-home health and on-site livability programs. So-
They're calling me saying it's gonna be it's a drug rehab and it's
No,
halfway house for that. So, okay, that's what it is.
for
Okay.
special needs individuals.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is there any other comment? All right, council, please cast your vote.
Motion carries. Introduce an ordinance authorizing and approving the engagement of Hurd, McElroy, and Vestral LLC to provide professional services to audit the financial statements of the city of Bossier City and Brookshire Grocery Arena. First reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Montgomery, second by Mr. Free. Is there any comments from the public? Comments from the council? All right, please cast your vote.
Motion carries. Introduce an ordinance to approve report of change order number 1 for the Airline Drive Rehabilitation Project with an increase of $50,853.04 for a total contract price of $1,140,627.04. First reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Montgomery and a second by Mr. Hammonds. Is there any public comment? Any comment from the council? All right, council, please cast your vote.
Motion carries. Introduce an ordinance to upgrade the vehicle detection systems at the intersections of Stockwell Road and Shed Road at Hickory Ridge Drive. First reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Montgomery, second by Mr. Free. Is there any public comment?
West Marriott, 211 Shadow Ridge Drive. The vehicle detection system, Walker eastbound at Barksdale, also needs to be upgraded. And I had mentioned that to the city engineer before school started, because that's a main thoroughfare for bus and parent traffic into Elm Grove Middle School. And I didn't hear anything back, and actually I tested it last week. Unless there's traffic in the left northbound turning lane going east into Panther Drive, that light will not change. So while we're talking about vehicle detection systems, eastbound Walker crossing Barksdale, if there's no one in the left-hand turning lane, they sure could use a couple bucks to get that fixed as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Marriott. Is there any other comment? Comment from the council? All right, council, please cast your vote.
Motion carries. Introduce an ordinance enacting section 110-115 of the Bossier City Code of Ordinances prohibiting the parking of vehicles in front and side yards. First reading.
So moved.
Second. A motion by Mr. Hammonds and a second by Mr. Smith. Is there any public comment? Any comment from the council?
Yeah, I do. I know I was out last week and y'all shot this down. This is nothing new, like I said before. This is already a law. All this is doing is helping property standards and giving the police ability to help property standards and write a ticket if need be. That is all this is doing. And I know that we've talked about it's going to help in lower income subdivisions. Just because it's a lower income subdivision does not mean that it can't be kept up well. That's all that this is doing, is helping property standards and helping areas that we have complaints on that. Just because property standards goes up and writes a little ticket and puts it on there, that means nothing. Those people, they keep doing it, they keep doing it, they keep doing it. All this is doing is another tool that if need be, the police can come out and write a ticket, and then those people have to appear in court. That is all this is doing. It's not saying the police are going to be driving around they've got better things to do than to drive around every subdivision looking for cars parked in front yards. But if need be, if it is a continuing problem, that is what this is for. And if need be, I know some of y'all had some heartburn over Section C. I have an amendment to Section C that I can propose if that would help y'all feel better about this. This should be a no-brainer in my eyes that this is helping keep up the subdivisions in the city of Bossier. That is all this is doing.
I work with property centers a good bit. You know, they stop by my house and we talk, tell them what I need done. Or I have never, and I'm not saying I'm right, but I have never seen them write a ticket for somebody parking in the yard. I mean,
They can't write a ticket, that's just it.
said that, though.
They put a little deal on the window of the car, telling them that the car needs to be moved, but it never happens. That is all this is for, is another tool that they have when they have a continuing problem.
What would be your amendment?
If y'all would like to, I'll make a motion to amend Section C of the proposed ordinance to read as follows. The parking of any automobile or vehicle in any place on private property which obstructs the sidewalk or any public right-of-way or easement in any yard shall be prohibited.
Now, Brian, does that count if somebody has a yard trailer parked beside the house?
Well, you're not supposed to have a trailer parked in the yard anyway.
Yeah, beside the house, though, some people can't, you know, the driveways are small, that's how they live, you know, the yard trailer and stuff.
Well, I understand that, but that's what people are complaining about. When people are buying property, they're moving in here into Bossier, and they pull up, and people have 4 vehicles parked in the front yard and work trailers and everything like that. I mean, I understand in certain areas that they don't have a lot of, but you've got to make other concessions. This may not affect your area, but it is affecting my district. And I get complaints on it every single day. And that is why I keep bringing this up. You shoot it down today, I'll bring it up again. It's no big deal. I'll just keep bringing it until I can get through to y'all that this is helping the city of Bossier.
Is there any desire for Mr. Hammond's amendment?
Go ahead and vote on it.
We'll
It's
just
fine.
vote on it as written. Is there any other public comment or comment from the council? All right, council, please cast your vote.
Motion fails.
So that means when I come to y'all's house, I'm gonna park in the front yard.
No, that's when you get told off.
Oh, so it's okay, it's not okay for your house, but it's okay
I
for
say in my
everybody
house,
else.
I have an 8-car driveway.
Y'all are a
I got an
joke.
8-car driveway, you can park on the driveway.
All right, Mr. Hammond says,
Adopt a resolution certifying off-system bridge program compliance for 2024-2025 for the city of Bossier City, Louisiana, first and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
motion by Mr. Montgomery and a second by Mr. Williams. Is there any comment from the public? Any comment from the council? Council, please cast your vote.
Motion carries. Adopt a resolution authorizing the hiring of an accounts clerk 2 in the Customer Services Department due to a transfer, first and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Montgomery, second by, I believe, Mr. Maggio. Is there any public comment? Any comment from the council? All right, council, please cast your vote.
Motion carries. Adopt a resolution authorizing the hiring or promotion of a utilities billing and collection supervisor and backfilling any vacancies this creates in the Customer Service Department. First and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Williams, second by Mr. Montgomery. Is there any public comment? Comment from the council? Council, please cast your vote.
Motion carries. Adopt a resolution authorizing Mayor Thomas H. Chandler to execute the attached entity state agreement between the city of Bossier City and the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development for streetscape improvements on North Gate Road. First and final reading.
Second.
Second by Mr. Motion by Mr. Darby, and second by Mr. Montgomery. Is there any public comment? Comment from the audience, or comment from the council? All right, please cast your vote.
Motion carries. Adopt a resolution ordering and calling a special election to be held in the city of Bossier City, state of Louisiana, to vote upon the adoption of amendments to the current city charter of the city of Bossier City, making application to the State Bond Commission and providing for other matters in connection therewith. First and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. President, before the council votes, there is the cost of that election.
Okay.
We got that from the Secretary of State. This does include I believe the cost for the total March municipal elections. I think the total cost is $87,600.
Damn, that's high.
But we have city council election and a mayor election, and so that 87,000 would include all of.
Plus the proposition, correct. And whatever else may or may not be on that ballot. I'm not intimately familiar with it, but
Well, we might have state amendments if,
might,
depending on how this
correct,
session goes.
depending on how the tax assessment.
Mr. Montgomery, did you have a question? Oh, I thought you raised your hand, I'm sorry. Is there any other comments? Mr. Crockett?
I want to play what the bond commission said.
Our legal discretion is either to approve this, disapprove it, or defer it. We don't, of course, have any, we don't have any room to roam on the legalities of all this. The administrative and legal responsibility to us has been met. However, probably one of the most, if not the most important right for an American citizen is under the First Amendment to petition its government. And my perception of this, the story, and I've heard both sides in detail, is that, this initiative to limit terms came from the people, and as a result, once the movement began, politicians who were running for office got involved in it. But my concern about this is that steps were kind of reluctant at first by the city council, and that eventually they gave in to the will of the people. But there are members, as I'm told, who've served many, many years who do not want the retroactive part of this. They'd still like to serve another 12 years, even after as many as 30 years. And I can understand where people who have a sincere belief that there should be term limits, that may be excessive to them. There's ongoing litigation on this question. And, but I think, from a procedural and even kind of a moral standpoint, I have a sense that the city council was very reluctant to move forward on this and had to be dragged kicking and screaming into this process. And if this goes forward as it is and it passes, I think it could block any further action, because the people of Bossier City will feel like that they have made their decision through their vote, and that would mean that there would be only prospective term limits. Now, it may be that retrospective term limits may actually be non-constitutional, but no one's made that point, so I'd assume that it's still an open question. So having said all of this, did I see another white card, by the way? Okay, good. So I want to make sure everyone has their voice here.
So anyway, they voted to defer, and I appreciate the chance to play that, but I think it's very clear that they voted to defer, and those were his comments. So why would you vote against democracy? Why would you vote against democracy? Why are you continuing to do this? I didn't think to pull that up earlier, just to clarify, but I think Mr. Ray's comments were wrong, and the arguments were for the people. I don't know why you're not supporting them. If you're leaving your office, why not leave it better?
Thank you, Mr. Crockett. Mr. Marriott?
West Marriott, 211 Shadow Ridge Drive. In front of you is a resolution calling for a special election to be held to vote on the adoption. The only reason you have to call a resolution is because the State Bond Commission requires a resolution. The State Bond Commission has already rejected this exact same resolution. You just heard a snippet of what Dr. Fleming said. He's the state treasurer and the president of the State Bond Commission. He said, hey, this is a moral issue. It goes beyond the letter of the law. The moral issue is every American has the First Amendment right to petition their government. This body, via their legal action, has blocked a lawful petition and has held it up in court. And so what he said was, hey, figure that stuff out first. Don't come back. And what you're doing is spitting in his face and saying, we're going to do it anyway. And here's what I think is going to happen. And let me know if I'm wrong. Your silence will tell me. You're going to go over there. You're going to say, here's the thing. Here's our exact same one you just told us. We're coming back. And he's going to say no, and you're going to sue him. You're going to sue him with a writ of mandamus and say it's not lawful. Tell me that's not the plan. Because I'm certain that's what you're going to do. You're going to say, hey, while we've held up this lawful petition authorized by the First Amendment of the Constitution, the law of the land, we've sent in a charter commission with a watered-down version of what the people want, something that benefits us personally. And we're going to fast-track that, delay the petition. The State Bond Commission already told you, hey, I don't want to see this. It's a moral issue. I think it's immoral that the Charter Commission is being pushed ahead of the people's petition. He's going to block it because he's already taken a stance. Why wouldn't he? And you're going to sue him. You're going to waste up more taxpayer money. You're going to do the exact same thing that this council says they try to avoid. They say it in one hand, and they talk out of the other side of their mouth and cause litigation. This is ridiculous to send the exact same thing that has already been rejected by the State Bond Commission. If anybody can answer the question, are you going to sue if he says no? If the State Bond Commission rejects this, are you going to sue as a body for a writ of mandamus to force this in front of the, to force this on the March ballot? I have no other comments.
there any other public comment? Any other comment from the council? All right, council, please cast your vote.
Motion carries. Remove from the 2024 meeting schedule the December 31st, 2024 regular city council meeting and adopt the 2025 city council meeting schedule.
So move. Second.
Motion by Mr. Darby, second by Mr. Montgomery. Is there any public comment? Any comment from the council?
No.
Please cast your vote.
Motion carries.
All right, there's no reports or announcements. Mr. Mayor, do you have anything? You gotta make it quick.
Okay. If you hadn't voted, hurry up, go and vote. You got time to go vote. And then Thursday, me and Mayor Arsenal has a breakfast here at the Civic Center at 7 o'clock. That's all I have to say.
All right, if there's no other business, meeting is adjourned.